Ladies and gentlemen, we are waiting, of course, on the Indiana General Assembly Committee on Utilities, Energy, and Telecommunications. Very similar to the committee last week that we were watching. They are now 7 minutes late. So we'll just wait here. I do want to announce, in case you have not heard, very, very, very sad information. Of course, we knew it was going to happen. The Indiana Senate Committee, we've been talking a lot about State House committees, but the Indiana Senate Committee today, the Senate Committee for Tax and Fiscal Policy, has completely scaled back and gutted the Senate Bill 1, which was the Braun property tax plan that was going to set us all free from the theft that is property tax. As we here at the Political Spotlight have been telling you since Braun first started talking about this, that it would not come to pass because of the idiots at the State House and the State Senate. Matter of fact, we brought you proof back on August 24th of 2024 when a newbie state representative out of District 54, Corey Criswell, stood in front of the Henry County Council and told them that the Indiana General Assembly would basically not be passing the Braun plan, that it was trash, and they were not backing it whatsoever. And then, of course, you had the plan put forward by District 33 State Representative J.D. Prescott, who had the help of Micah Beckwith, Lieutenant Governor. At the time, he was running to be Lieutenant Governor, and he was also helping District 33 State Representative J.D. Prescott. The HRCC basically handed the bill to Prescott, and they were using that to kind of put pressure on Braun against his bill. It just made no sense. And so for those of you that thought that we were going to be out from underneath it, unfortunately, it went to committee this morning, and they completely gutted the bill, scaled it back, and it is not even a shadow of its former self. So that's some horrible news out of committee this morning. Happened at 8:30 this morning, and here it is 10:40, and we're still waiting on these yahoos to get started. Unfortunately, I cannot tell you how long it will be. We should have already started. I think last week it took us now let's look here. Okay, yeah. So they've scaled back for some unknown reason the agenda for today's committee has been scaled back. They had a bunch of bills, but now they are only looking at House Bill 1459, water and wastewater utility asset management, House Bill 1480, line maintenance in public right-of-way, and then, of course, the bill that we are here for, House Bill 1628, property development matters. And so that's what we're here for. But we are just waiting. There's nothing that we can do. So I apologize. Just continue to hang in there with us. Don't go anywhere. And we will watch this until they pop up. So I'm sorry for the delay. Let me see if there's any comments. Can you guys hear me? I want to make sure that I'm not just talking to myself here. Can somebody, anybody, can you put something in the comments? Don't forget to, here we go. We're getting started.
If I could have your attention or something like that. Welcome to the,
they got to fix that.
I believe, last House Utilities, Energy, and Telecommunications Committee of this half of the session. We will do 2 bills, maybe a third, we'll see. What we're going to do is Representative Pressel has a bill that's an amend and vote only, and there's no one signed up to testify. Is anybody here for 1459 that has not signed up? Okay, good. So if you have cell phones, it's a $3,000 fine if your cell phone goes off. If you're a lawyer, it's $6,000. So, Jake, so we've never collected the fine, but I mean, it's nice to have unenforceable rules. Also, and I don't think looking at the audience, I have to worry about it. We have in the past, but there's no cheering, there's no booing, and most of all, there's no insulting of people's character. I won't put it up with it from the committee. I certainly won't from a witness. If you attack someone's character, you're done. And I have some folks that have funny looking hats out there that'll help you understand it. So I was in an energy committee meeting some 12 years ago, which wound up in a fist fight. I wasn't chairman, but it ain't happening on my watch. So anyway, I know I don't have to warn you, but we have had some folks get very, very frisky. And somebody has a Facebook thing that says she says I'm a dirtbag, which is fine. I always like intellectual argument to get things done. So Harry Truman once said, politics is a game of friends. You're making all the enemies you can make just by getting elected. So there aren't too many names I haven't been called. So anyway, for you youngsters, if you aspire to this, get used to being called names. It's the way it is. It's like 3rd grade. So anyway, with that, let's do committee introductions. Representative Burton, would you like to start us off today?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Burton, House District 77, which is Evansville.
Good morning, State Representative Cherish Pryor, District 94, northwest side of Indianapolis.
Morning, Carrie Hamilton, District 87, northeast Indianapolis.
Matt Pierce, District 61, which is most of the city of Bloomington.
Jim Pressel, District 20, majority of LaPorte County and a small portion of Stark County.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Sarah Berkman, Legislative Services.
Ed Soliday, District 4 of Valparaiso.
Dave Hall, District 62. That's all of Brown County, part of Jackson County, and part of Monroe County, including part of the city of Bloomington.
Chris Jeter, House District 88, portions of Hamilton, Hancock, Madison, Marion counties.
Kendell Culp, House District 16, the rural counties of Jasper, Pulaski, Stark, and White counties.
Dale DeVon, District 5, St. Joe County, home of the Fighting Irish.
Elena Schonkweiler, District 29, which is the city of Noblesville, and a small portion of Fishers.
Timothy Wesco, District 21, portions of St. Joe and Elkhart counties.
Bob Morris, Fort Wayne, Allen County, District 84.
Okay, thank you all. Representative Pressel, I believe you have 1459, and this is an amend and vote only.
So first, I'd like to make a motion to delete amendment number 1 from last week.
Second the motion.
Consent.
Any discussion? Consent?
Consent.
Consent.
Okay, taken by consent. You have another amendment?
Thank you. I do. Now it's amendment number 2. So after testimony last week on 1459, some interesting things were brought up. And as always, we'd like to help the stakeholders and get to that middle ground. And I think that's what this amendment will do. So it eliminates the yearly submission of the asset management programs and instead requires the IURC to schedule for those submissions. And they are required then still in the underlying bill to review those every 4 years. Brings into parity the three-strike rule that already exists with regulated utilities. So upon the first violation by IDEM for one of the unregulated utilities with an asset management program, they would basically come to the IURC and explain how they're going to correct this, how they're going to fix this. Upon the second time, it gets a little bit stiffer. And the third time, it would send them into receivership. So this is parity with existing statute, and that's what we were asked to do, and that's what this amendment does. Appreciate your support.
Committee discussion. Can we take this by consent?
Consent.
Taken by consent. Discussion on the full bill as amended. Pleasure of the committee.
Move to pass as amended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Call roll.
Chairman Soliday,
Aye.
Representative Hall,
Yes.
Representative Culp,
Aye.
Representative DeVon,
Yes.
Representative Pressel,
Aye.
Representative Jeter,
Yes.
Representative Morris,
Yes.
Representative Schunkweiler,
Yes.
Representative Wesco,
Yes.
Representative Pierce,
Yes.
Representative Hamilton,
Yes.
Representative Burton,
Aye.
Representative Pryor. Passes 13-0.
Bill passes 13-0. Congratulations, Representative. Next, we have House Bill 1480, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I appreciate the chairman meeting with Mayor Steve Barnett and I to discuss this topic that the Mayor Barnett is very passionate about. I call this bill the cable pollution bill. After having spoken to Mayor Barnett about this about 2 years ago, I now notice cable pollution everywhere that I drive, run, or go throughout the state. Chairman Soliday had held a few meetings in the past couple of years and brought this issue up to stakeholders, and nothing has improved since he brought it up. Therefore, the mayor and I met again with Chairman Soliday, and we agreed to draft this legislation. House Bill 480's purpose is basically to set minimum standards for the installation and maintenance of communication service or utility service facilities in public right-of-ways. There's quite a few people here who are experts at this, and I'm going to give my time to them. But again, I just want to say that, again, House Bill 1480 is setting minimum standards for communication services or utility service facilities that are in the public right-of-ways. I do appreciate the City of Franklin's Mayor Steve Barnett for his passion to keep his city safe and clear from further cable pollution. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for hearing 1480, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But again, there are people well more versed in this than I that will be able to answer questions a little better probably. But
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Give you an opportunity to close. As I have shared with you, we probably will not vote this today, but okay.
Thank you.
So, Johnny Hart. Joni Hart. Everybody hides behind the pillar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Joni Hart with Comcast. We have a couple of concerns with the bill as written, and I appreciate Representative Davis for meeting with us and talking through some of those. Right now, the bill relies heavily on terms such as abandoned, loose, damaged, inoperable, improperly secured, but none of these terms are really well defined in the bill, and it could be difficult for us to correct these appropriately. For example, under the current version of the bill, every drop we have to a home that has canceled or no longer has a subscription would be considered an abandoned line. And for a number of reasons, we don't withdraw the cable from folks who have removed subscription, because the next month it could tick back up or someone else could move back in. And so that would be a big concern for us. I do thank Chairman Soliday for the stakeholder meetings. We have been participating in those. Following our attention to this issue, we did an audit of the area to look at all the examples that were provided of the cable pollution and of the different issues. I believe we have addressed those, if not, like our local government affairs folks and our construction folks have been made aware and are working to address all of those. We hope that that continues. Happy to work with the mayor and this committee and the stakeholder groups to continue that process. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Ms. Hart? Seeing none, thank you. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Representative Pryor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How, if a person sees that a line is down or there's an issue, how long does it take for the industry to come out and repair that? And then the other question is, how would a person know the difference between a cable line and a utility line, like from electrical line? I wouldn't know the difference. When I see the lines, I immediately get concerned.
I appreciate that question. So for our lines, starting a few years back, we tag them and we tag them prospectively. That has not always been the case. Going back, 25, 30 years, we have lines that are still out there, but we try as we go and work on them to tag them through attrition of being able to identify that. If it doesn't have a tag, I would think that you would call either the unit or the pole owner in those instances. And then typically, as soon as we are notified from a pole owner or from a complaint process, we try to respond within 24 hours or sooner if we can. But we are also at the mercy of other folks on the pole as well. So sometimes it needs to be a coordinated process. So if we need to fix something, but another line on the pole needs to be addressed first, we kind of have to wait for our turn. So it's a coordinated process, and depending on what the issue is, it can take different amount of time.
Other questions? Just thank you, Ms. Hart. Just a little explanation of the problem. The cable folks to hang wires on a pole have to have engineering done. Believe it or not, you can only put so much stress on a pole. So the utility companies have to grant a permit for anything that's hung on the poles. And sometimes mistakes are made and they'll give a permit for the north side and it'll wind up on the south side, and we resolve those things. But over the years, there have been lots of people in the cable business. Some of them have gone out of business. So if you're dealing with AT&T, Comcast, any one of a number, they've got a process to come out. If you identify who the cable is, the problem is some of this stuff, some cable companies are consolidations of other companies. And so the reason I'm not even voting the bill is where the discussions are, is how to identify who owns it. Because if it's just hanging there, there is a system that some people use that they have their laptop, and wherever they go, their phone goes through that that VoIP channel. And if you cut that wire and it's active and they have a heart attack, they have no way to get through. So trying to find something, one, who knows who it belongs to, and then who has the authority to see if there's actually noise going on, actual transmission going on in the line, and then who's going to cut it down. And so it's a little more complex, because the big guys are probably all going to testify today, well, we get a call, we fix it. it's the ones they don't know who to call where it becomes a very complex issue. I don't know if that helps Representative Pryor, but I've sat in on these meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It does. I just, as a regular citizen that see a line down,
Yeah.
you don't know whether it's a cable line or electrical line. And, you know, the regular person probably doesn't know.
Right.
So I think it's helpful for there to be a way for the regular person to be able to identify so that they know who to call. So hopefully, as we go through this process, everybody will get a better understanding of who to call, what line it is, and then there is a good way of determining how long it's going to take to get those repaired once everybody is coordinated.
Yeah,
But
and
thank
the
you.
point is just sending somebody out there with a hard hat and a pair of side cutters. There are some significant implications with first responders and so forth. So trying to sort through all of that and this has been, we're not there yet. So Isabel Elliott with AIM.
Mr. Chairman, there was a handout that I handed out to your committee members. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think they all have it. Elizabeth, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Isabel Elliott, representing AIM, and I'm here to support House Bill 1480. I would like to thank Representative Davis for authoring this bill and providing municipalities with an important tool to help maintain our public right-of-ways. This bill allows local units to more effectively manage their public right-of-ways and help ensure that all facilities are in working order and there is no safety concerns with the facilities. Thank you for allowing me to speak and happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you for being here today, Ms. Elliott.
Thank you.
Natasha Mershon. What do you mean you're third?
I don't have to push a button, do I?
You need a light on and it's on.
Okay.
You see that red light that's looking at me? If I don't see it, then I remind you.
So my name is Natasha Marchand. I'm the CEO of the Masters Group. We did an audit in the city of Franklin about the line pollution. And the big problem that we have is when you're going out there, it's not just what's aerial, it's on the ground. You've got kids that are cutting themselves when they're playing outside because the pedestals and stuff on the ground are broken. You have a lot of damaged facilities. You have potholes, manholes. I've even had an issue where a manhole was placed and it literally caved. The ground around it caved. And if it wasn't for the semi driver catching it when he went to turn into a silos, he would have flipped his semi. It's about the rules of the regulations when it pertains to the construction and how it's handled. And with the line pollution cleanup, it involves what is out there already and how they're installing it moving forward. Because what's happening is if you drive down the road, you're going to see a bunch of cables just spooled up everywhere. And they're not secured. You'll have them hanging down the road. You'll have what we call splice cases and closures that are dangling. It's not just about the lines that are feeding to people's homes, but when you have someone calling you and say, hey, I can't get out of my driveway because the cables are hanging so low, I can't pull my RV out of my drive. Well, we have guidelines of how high they're supposed to be. But if they're not following those, it's not fair to the homeowner. It's not fair to the family that's out there driving and they got cables that are flying across Main Street in Greenwood, or a business owner that has a spool of cable that's hanging and it's dropped right in the middle of their entrance to their business. And it's just hanging there. We had the problem down US 31 right in front of the dealership. It was nonstop spools of fiber and stuff just dangling. And if it wasn't for someone speaking out and saying, hey, we got a problem, we need to get this addressed, then it's just going to keep being like that. It's just going to stay like that over and over and over. And yeah, I just had an issue out there in Franklin from an engineering firm that called me and said, hey, I don't know who owns these cables. And I was out there on a job because I own an engineering firm. So we designed telecom. We've been out there during construction. We've been out there with the design. I've looked at plans, absolutely no right-of-way dimensions. they're building in people's homes and they're in their private property. There's no guidelines to what they're doing. And if you don't start it and fix it there in the beginning, then when they're going through the process, the contractors are putting it wherever they want because they're not told exactly where to go. They're just put it here. And I've literally looked at the prints and it's just a line going down the side of the road. Now, some of us engineer firms will build it right. Others, they'll just throw it out there. You've got telecoms that are doing it the right way. Then you got telecoms that are just putting it in there. You've got roads being damaged. And who's being affected? The citizens in the community, because the towns are having to pay to repair the damage. The city or town of Bargersville, we're actually paying a contractor to come in there and transfer cables and clean up some of the abandoned, unsecured, improperly secured cables. Because we've asked telecoms to come out there. They'll clean up some, but they're not cleaning up all of it. So they've had to take out of their own money for the town and put it towards fixing the problem themselves. Now that shouldn't be that way. Now, granted, we want to work with everyone on the level that it needs to be so everyone's being treated fairly, but we need to work together to where this stops. And it's been going on for years, so it's not going to be overnight. But at least if we start it and get it going, it's going to move in the right direction. And if we put regulations in order for the contractors, the telecoms, the engineering firms to do it right, it's going to start getting better as it goes.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Carmen Young.
Good morning.
Ms. Young.
Yes, thank you, Chair Soliday and members of the committee. Carmen Young, Town of Whiteland, Director of Administration. I support House Bill 1480. We are certainly in support of providing access and options to broadband, high-speed internet to our citizens, but it's also important for us to protect our infrastructure. It's just as critical as getting high speed and as somebody else mentioned earlier, the voice over IP, making sure people have what they need when they need it. But we also need to protect our citizens in the infrastructure. How this would benefit the town of Whiteland and our citizens is we are a small community of 5,000 citizens. Adding installation requirements, both aerial and ground installation, would be critical, as well as cleaning up that infrastructure. As Ms. Moran had spoken about earlier, the town of Bargersville Electricity provides poles within the town of Whiteland, and they have certainly helped clean that up in the last year as they've put in new poles. Again, this is a prevention of our protection of our infrastructure in the ground as well. I got a call last week from a citizen or a commercial business, pardon me, who had their sewer lateral bored through by a comm company that had come down. It wasn't the right of way. So it's unfortunate that these things happen, but it's also, if we set some standards for everyone and everyone's following that. I know we can set them at the local level, but again, we're a small town. We have a lot of things going on. So something like this would just help get the ball rolling to protect the smaller communities like Whiteland and our infrastructure and removing that cable pollution from the aerial. So I appreciate the time. Does anybody have any questions?
I get to ask that. Questions? Yes, Representative Burton.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. How many fines has Whiteland issued based on this situation?
So unfortunately for us, we have a limited amount of staff. So when it comes to going after, we don't usually find the problem until after that installation has occurred. So we haven't fined anyone yet, but this would help to allow us that opportunity just to kind of have more teeth. I know our local ordinance, I actually have a town council meeting tonight, and this is a plan to introduce similar ordinance that the city of Franklin has. We have not fined anyone. We have been quote unquote nice on a lot of our fines when it comes to, different violations of our current ordinance and that are damage. Right now, we only require a $5,000 surety bond. But if somebody bores through a sewer interceptor, it's going to be more than $5,000, even if they don't patch back the road as it is supposed to after they've bored. it's going to cost me more than $5,000 to cut that out and properly protect that. So we have not fined anyone, but we need, like I said, we wear a lot of hats in our small community. We only have 25 employees. So it's tough for us to kind of manage.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Matt Long.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Matt Long with the Indiana Energy Association. Representative Pryor, I wanted to address your question from earlier. I should have brought a diagram, but typically electric is always going to be on top. Communications will be below that, and there's certain spacing requirements that need to take place on the poles. So I can follow up with you and kind of show you visually how that looks on a pole. So as discussed, this issue the bill seeks to identify is cable pollution, attachments to utility poles where the attached lines are not maintained properly. Electric utilities may own the poles, but we do not own the attached lines. Additionally, electric utilities are required to allow attachments to their poles, but do not have the authority or responsibility to maintain them. Electric utility lines are regulated by the IURC, and we are required to comply with the National Electric Safety Code. This code contains numerous installation and maintenance requirements for both overhead and underground electrical lines in order to ensure that such lines are safely installed and maintained. Public and contractor safety is imperative. We should be careful about maintenance requirements that may go too far and put non-electric utility personnel who may not have sufficient training into potentially unsafe situations when dealing with these lines. If this discussion moves forward, we would respectfully request that the General Assembly narrow its focus in this bill to not include all utility service providers that are already regulated in this manner by the IURC. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for Mr. Long? Seeing none, thank you for being here,
Thanks.
Matt. Kevin Walls.
Good morning. I'd like to thank Representative Davis and Chairman Soliday and committee for hearing me today. I'm here representing Johnson County as a whole. We support this bill introduced by the mayor for various different reasons. The slowdown for what we run into when we do any highway work, we run into cables. It is a big scheduling delay and a cost delay to everyone. Abandoned cables, we have to research that and find out where they come from. It just takes time and a lot of scheduling conflicts. So I thank you for letting me speak to you today. And if you've got any questions.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Burton.
Yeah,
I'm
my thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. Same question. How many fines has your county issued based on this?
We don't issue fines. We stop work permits. And that's the only way we get reactions. You can fine them, but collecting those fines would be difficult, time consuming, and costly to the county. So we actually put a stop work on it. We get immediate response, but it's a time factor. Okay.
So, Commissioner, just so I'm clear, because I was fairly certain how cities worked, you actually issue a permit for the county for
Yes.
fiber? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Yep.
William Brown. Oh, I'm sorry. No, he's not here for that. I'm sorry. A little distracted. Daniel Miller. Daniel Miller. It's your big chance, Daniel. I mean,
yeah, got a full house. We're in the room next door too, watching. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Good morning. My name is Daniel Miller, and I am the president of the Indiana Broadband and Technology Association. Our association is a nonprofit trade association that has been representing Indiana's broadband and technology sectors for over 100 years. The IBTA is made up of 28 local competitive wireline and wireless companies and over 50 companies that provide supply goods and services to broadband and technology companies. I'd like to thank the General Assembly first by all of your continued support in helping expand broadband access to all Hoosiers. It's been very vital for not just us, but again, for all the people that don't have access in the state currently. That being said, as it pertains to House Bill 1480, we are opposed at this time. We do appreciate the conversations with the bill's authors, but we did flag this early on in our members and started surveying our members. And while we understand it may not be an isolated issue, the majority of our members said that they deal with these issues as quickly as possible and to a satisfaction of local communities. Another primary concern that we have is the suggested potential remediation process. We do have concerns about that arbitrary issuing of a quote unquote fining authority, which I think some people before me have talked about. And we'd share that sentiment that pulling permits is probably the best way to handle this. I'd argue that if you're not going to respond to being or having a permit pulled, you're probably not going to respond to a fine. So we do have concerns with that quote unquote fining authority. Furthermore, this bill could make companies hesitate to bring their business to Indiana or a number of communities throughout the state, as it is written, for the fear of that arbitrary and non-appealable fine. This is setting the stage for yet another area of potential issues. Again, at this point, our membership believes that local control is what works best here in Indiana. And would thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Barnett. Mayor? There we go.
So good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for hearing House Bill 1480. I want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for meeting with Representative Davis and myself this past fall in regards to House Bill 1480 and taking the time to help with the solution. I was impressed with your knowledge and suggestions on the issue. And with 45 years of underground utility experience, 35 years managing our family business, and 10 years as area manager for Miller Pipeline, I feel qualified to speak about cable pollution. I manage projects for utility companies such as Indiana Gas, Vectren, Ojai Valley Gas, Fountaintown Gas, Batesville Utilities, Indiana American Water, Johnson County REMC, and Duke Energy. These utility companies are governed by agencies like OSHA, IURC, DOT with operator qualifications, and the state. And I'm in my third term as mayor, and I can tell you that utilities with oversight is not the problem. So I hope you guys heard that. You're not the problem. In my city, county, and around the state, telecoms are the problem. They are the problem because they have no oversight, they have no standards, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. And that's why I've given you guys plenty of pictures today. And trust me, I have many, many more that we can look at. You can see cables improperly tied to poles or dangling unsecured. You can see clusters of cables where half the cables are dead and haven't been removed or been left on the ground. You can see abandoned pedestals, vaults, improperly installed vaults, and hanging wires and roads that's been damaged that we've had to fix. And there's even pictures where safety has been ignored 100%. Cable pollution costs cities, towns, and taxpayers thousands of dollars. In the city of Franklin, we have spent many man hours trying to chase down which telecom company is responsible. Most of the time, we end up cleaning up the abandoned cables and the mess that they leave in our right-of-ways and repairing the damage that they do to our streets. The city of Franklin also spent $60,000 to hire the Masters Group to help address this problem. Their team was a huge help in getting some of this fixed. However, we should not be spending taxpayer dollars fixing telecom problems. I can tell you one part of it that has added to it over the years. For an example, AT&T was the original provider of landline phone services, telecoms for infrastructure in Franklin. AT&T sold its operation to Franklin Embark, who later merged with CenturyLink. CenturyLink later merged with Quest. And then in 2020, CenturyLink rebranded as Lumen. 21, Lumen sold assets in 20 different states to Brightspeed, including those in Indiana, particularly in Franklin, where Franklin has a Brightspeed office. Details for ownership has changed. The reason I give you the reason for this ownership has changed, that has been the problem along the way. Whenever the companies take ownership of another company they acquired. They just simply leave their old stuff in the ground and don't take care of it. So with that being said, I just want to say that I started this in 2023. Actually, I started this when I became mayor because we seen the problems that we had. But in 2023, I started trying to get legislators started by showing a PowerPoint presentation to Senator Rob Bray, Jack Sandlin, hope he rest in peace, and Greg Walker, and Representatives Rob Green, Michelle Davis, Peggy Mayfield, Johnson County Commissioner Ron West, Greenwood Mayor Mark Myers, Bargersville Town Council member Susie Qualls, Whiteland Town Manager Carmen Parker, and we all agreed we have got to do something and try to get this taken care of. So finally, here we are 2 years later, and I hope that we can move this forward. And I want to take the time to thank Representative Davis and Green for their work on House Bill 1480. And also want to thank this committee and hope that you can see that this is a problem and we need to move this forward. I don't know that we have all the answers here today, but this is something that the fines, lo and behold, we had one step up to the plate, and a few months later, they finally come and took the cable down. We've also stopped permits in Franklin. We're the same as the county there. We also issue permits that comes to us, and we will hold permits if we can't get satisfaction. But it is really difficult to take ownership. Just tell us who it is. If we know who it is, I mean, that's the big part. Nobody, and I heard the question about the cables being the electrics on the top, and then we're supposed to have they're supposed to be marked. There's no cables marked. You can go through Franklin. I'll take you all a tour. There's no cables marked. They can say that, but it's not. So that's the difficult problem, is trying to figure out who it is. My house particular, I live in an old part of Franklin. I had 4 cables going to it. I got one provider. I actually cut the other 3 cables off my house myself. So, and to hear them say that we want to leave these cables because somebody may move in and switch service back again, I don't see that as a problem. I see that cable laying there for years and years and years and finally falls on the ground, and people are calling us, how can I mow my yard? I got this cable. We don't know if it's electric or we don't know it's telephone. So it is an issue. I'll quit going on. I am passionate about this, you can tell. So I appreciate it. Is there any questions for me?
I could ask that, maybe for all of the witnesses. Things get quickly out of control if we have the witnesses calling on people to ask questions. So if you could just let me, I'm old and I kind of like to do it my way. So,
okay.
Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Soliday, with that advice.
Thank you for being here, Mayor.
Thank you.
Steve Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve Rogers with AT&T here to oppose the bill. Not to give away my age, but if you follow these issues over a given period of time, you realize that every 6-7 years, there's a dispute between a unit of local government and a provider or a group of providers. And the unit will come to you asking for duplicative regulations and draconian fines. And fortunately, up to this point, the legislature has decided to favor communication over legislation. Recognize that a lot of times, not to, suggest that there isn't a legitimate issue in Franklin, but when you come asking for statewide finding authority, it's painting with a pretty broad brush. We don't have any network in Franklin to speak of. We're not involved in any of the 1,300 or so violations they found in their audit. I haven't seen the audit. But I have read a lot of the news coverage and seen some of the pictures. And of course, there are some legitimate issues in there, but to say that there are 1,300 legitimate issues, I think is overstating the case. I think according to one news article, more than a third of the instances that were cited in the audit involve buried facilities. Indiana code already gives authority, very specific authority, to local governments to manage the right of way. It enumerates a number of different powers they have, including the power to charge providers for repairs that they have to make to things that weren't prepared properly, or to force us to repair things. I think you heard the gentleman from Johnson County state pretty clearly that one of the levers they have is they just stop issuing permits, and all of a sudden issues get addressed. So I think it's pretty clear that there's no additional authority needed for that. Another category that of items that are in that audit are aesthetic things. Obviously, this is a complicated business. Things aren't always pretty. But if there are issues that are hazards to public safety or issues that are service affecting, of course, we're going to get out there quickly. But that's kind of the hierarchy that we have. We want to deal with those things first, and finding people for things that someone doesn't like looking at, because, a lot of times, sometimes it may be a maintenance issue, but a lot of times it's, there's excess cable on a pole for reasons that are legitimate reasons. But again, some people don't like looking at it. So this kind of a bill kind of takes that hierarchy of public safety first, service affecting problems second, aesthetics third, and flips that on its head. And for that reason, we oppose the bill.
Thank you. Questions? Representative Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask about traditional telephone companies have a lot of copper twisted pair up on the poles, and I've read some trade stories that suggest it's just going to be abandoned in place. And then I recently read an article that said you were going to have a windfall because you're going to recycle all the copper or sell the scrap. So I'm just kind of curious what you think the industry that is basically abandon the stuff in place when they move on to onto fiber, or do you expect that will actually be taken down at some point from the poles?
I think there's a lot of debate going on in the industry about what's the proper way to deal with that. Copper is an old technology, and as you mentioned, we're replacing it with fiber in a lot of cases. But the question of abandoned facilities or inactive facilities is pretty hard to define. Something might be inactive in that it doesn't have a retail customer on it, but it might be connected to cables that do inter-office traffic. Something might be inactive because we're anticipating future growth. It's hard to define what is an inactive cable. One of the things that we're considering when deciding what to do with cable that's going to be replaced by fiber is the quickest, least costly, most effective way to deploy fiber is to overlash it over existing copper cable. But as you mentioned, copper has a value. There are other considerations. So there is a conversation about that. But I think the thing that we have to all keep in mind is that every dollar we spend remediating old copper cable is a dollar that does not get spent deploying broadband to people who are demanding it. So that's just a few of the issues that are being considered as the industry decides what to do here.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wants to speak on this bill? Seeing none, I am not going to vote this bill. We have had a group meeting. It is a complex problem. We've got to figure out a way out. One of the ironies of being a legislator, and we're going to see some of it today, young folks. Locals want the state to step in regularly, except when they don't. They want us to raise the taxes, pay for their roads, but they don't want to raise taxes. They don't want to clean up cable issues. They want us to do it. And the dichotomy becomes almost overwhelming. Counties that are in a panic because their cuts coming, but yet vote down billion-dollar businesses that would greatly increase their tax base. It's what's known as dichotomously conflicted, and it's depressing to watch. But we can work through this. I'm confident we can. Representative Davis, you may close, but It's just the day for when do you want us to intervene and when do you not want us to intervene?
I appreciate that feedback, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee for your questions. I do understand this is a complex issue and that we do like local control until we don't like local control. I understand that as well. But as you can tell today, this is a Johnson County, I believe. This is not just a Johnson County issue. This is all throughout the state. And I appreciate my Johnson County folks showing up today and coming together to inform you of what's happening. Again, not just in Johnson County, but throughout the state. And Chairman Soliday, I look forward to hopefully working with you, with the stakeholders to help to come to some solution for our counties.
And Representative, as I mentioned to you, we have a number of bills coming over from the Senate.
Mhm.
We may be able to put some things in there. So I would encourage you and the mayor to work with the industry
Okay.
and see what we can do together to solve the problem instead of coming back next year with, hey, we didn't get it exactly right this time.
Okay.
We never get it exactly right. It's an employment opportunity for all the lawyers in the room. So I appreciate you bringing the bill. We talked about it quite a bit. It's a real problem. I just think reasonable minds can get together and solve the problem. So
Thank you.
with that, don't go away. We'll keep working on it.
I'm sure the mayor will not go away. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okie doke. Thank you. Okay. Any committee discussion? I'm not going to vote the bill, but your input's valued.
Yeah, just one quick thing. If you go back to draft the language, I think that we define facilities and we have subsets of that, line, cable, and that kind of stuff. But the actual section that kind of puts the requirements on only refers to cable. And so that might be intentional, but cable companies use a hybrid fiber coaxial system, and the old-fashioned telephone guys we call them lines. So we just need to straighten out if it's applying to everyone. You might want to use facility or something when you're laying stuff out, as opposed to being very specific about cables.
Good input. Thank you, Representative Pierce. Other thoughts? Seeing none, you've heard me. I've said to Representative Davis, there are other opportunities, but I'd really like to see folks sort this out and get through the complexities. We've got $8.6 billion or $860 million the federal government has given us for more broadband in the BEAD program. So now's the right time to get things sorted out and get it right. With that much money flowing around, one of the frustrations in the cable world is I think the RMCs are here, but the last I heard, to run a fiber to a rural place is averaging $7,200 of taxpayer money. So it's not that simple to go out and cut down $7,200 worth of installation and then have to come back in and string it again when the next homeowner comes. So it's a little more complex than the wires laying there forever. Very expensive. You can only connect at a node. You can't just go splice the wire. So it needs conversation that needs to still happen. So again, thank you to everybody who came to speak. So with that, we will move to House Bill 1628. And if you would, Representative, just give us a summary, and then I have a fairly significant amendment to the bill that will be a chairman's amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As I said last week, this bill, again, we're working on it. We've been working on it for a good part of the last 3 weeks. And we're trying to get that balance of personal property rights, economic development, energy plan, if you will, and then also local control. And as you heard from much of the testimony last week, we got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of ideas that have come forth over the past week, and I'm thankful for that from all different areas, commissioners, Farm Bureau, Even economic developers have pitched in. So I think you'll hear an amendment today possibly that'll get us quite a bit closer to what we're trying to get accomplished and see if we can get it in a good place. But it's a tough bill. It's a difficult one for sure. I've spoken to most of my locals over the past weekend, and I'm sure most of you have received calls as well. So not something to be taken lightly, but I think we can get it in a good place as we respect the process and just kind of see where this thing goes. So we'll go from there. Hopefully that's enough.
Thank you. It's a chairman's amendment, so I'll take responsibility for it. Thank you, Representative Snow. One of the difficult things, nobody gets everything they want when they come to the State House. And government works when there's give and take on both sides. And when you try to define what the problem is you're trying to solve and try to find solutions to that problem that either make everybody equally unhappy or sort of happy. And I think I've been working on this with others for 6 years. And it's not because I like wind or solar. Personally, I like 2,000 gerbils and a treadmill. They're nice little creatures and you can pet them when they're not running on the treadmill. But we need energy supply. The demand is growing. Now, maybe not for Indiana. Counties are voting down data centers. It's almost weekly. And there'll be, with onshoring, there'll be trip centers, and I'm sure they'll be voting those down. And people say, why is my county shrinking? Well, because the kids go to college and they get a degree and there's no job in their county, so they move on. But gee, why is my county shrinking? And they're running out of money and they vote down tax resources. They're significant. Town in my community voted down a data center. Every single property owner taxes would have been reduced by 52%. They didn't like the noise once a month for 10 minutes to test the backup generators, which was 40 decibels. A friend of mine had a sleep test. He's 72 decibels when he snores. I told him, you just been zoned out of that town, man. You can't move there. So the new populism, how to deal with it, how to keep our state competitive. There are waves. When the steel industry came in, a lot of steel mills were built, and then it went dead for 50 years. So right now, there's a lot of demand for data centers, and which give you a good tax base, make noise for 10 minutes a month, but we don't want them. So trying to find some common ground. $50 billion worth of new business wants to come to Indiana. $50 billion. They want renewable energy. Why? Not because they're woke, because they want to sell to a market that wants a reduced carbon footprint. That's what the market is. That's why they're asking for it. And maybe we should just tell them, not here. We want to be an agricultural tourist state. And maybe that's what we should tell them. But sooner or later, we've got to move past this and decide who we want to be and where are the limits of local control. If we're going to have 92 counties, 276 county commissioners set energy policy for the state, buy some candles, because we're not going to be able to meet the demand. So all of us are trying to, so we've had a group of 300 people travel the state, and they have a website. And I mentioned last week, very few of you know that windmills cause children to be mean. Mine were born that way. They never saw a windmill. So windmills or not, you're still going to have to discipline your kids and so forth. So this is no easy thing. And I spent the weekend trying to find some common ground. But it's never enough. It's about power. But it's also about, do our kids stay here? So here's the amendment. Whether we will vote this bill or not is still up there. I fortunately can live anywhere in the world I want to live, so we can do whatever we want to do with it. We've done a number of things to try to reach a balance of joint governance over these issues. So the first thing in the amendment, it says that you can't use more than 2% of a county's land for renewables unless the county governing agency and the petitioner agree to use more land. Now, in our smallest county, that's about 1,000 acres. In the larger ones, it'll be up to 8. But 2% of the land. Then there is a second restriction, and that's on farmland. The federal government rates farmland from 1 to 8, the very best being 1, the very worst is an 8. We've said you cannot put solar farm on 1, 2, 3, and 4, but you can on 5, 6, 7, and 8. But if the county commissioners want to, and some of our counties recognize they're in financial trouble and need the tax base. So let me tell you, what they pay for an acre of solar is significantly more, and I wrote the bill, is significantly more than what they pay for an acre of farmland. And some of our counties have been saved by bringing in renewables, and I can quote them for you. But it says you can't do it unless the commissioners and the petitioner agree. Then it says, and we're going to make a change, and I've already talked to LSA, it's an easy one. It said the standards that are in the voluntary program, the counties may negotiate on that land where it is suitable, which is very little, because the 2% still has to be 5 through 8 soil quality. So it's probably less than 2%, maybe closer to 1. But the standards that were hammered out in 3 bill attempts, the counties can negotiate 50% more or less than the standards that they are there for setbacks. So they are free to do that. So it does say for pipelines, this is only a $10 billion deal, but we have counties now trying to block pipelines. Never mind, we've had natural gas coming to, would you put the camera down? It's not a circus. We had counties that have tried to ban pipelines. Now, for the last 75 years, we've been putting natural gas into porous rock because we don't have enough pipeline here to heat our homes and run our businesses. So they pump natural gas all summer so that we have enough to heat our homes and run our businesses in the winter. That's natural gas. Up where I live, because of the lake, we have gasoline, we have oil, we have all kinds of things moving by pipeline. But now we're going to ban CO2 because there was one event in Mississippi. And if you're going to ban CO2, that means Pepsi, that means Coke, that means ginger ale, that means beer. CO2 is everywhere. You're breathing it out right now. So the amendment does say that if a pipeline is permitted under federal and state safety standards, then there cannot be local ordinances to block it. This is at least $10 billion in business because the government, everybody thinks Mr. Trump's going to throw it all out. Maybe he will. I doubt it because a lot of it's Administrative Procedures Act. A lot of it is congressional. But if EPA Rule 111 survives, and remember, presidents are elected every 4 years and planning for energy is like 10, 15 years in advance. So if 111 stands, then every utility, gas or coal-fired, by 2032 must sequester carbon dioxide or bank their electric output to 30%. Buy candles. That's why we're doing it. Not because and who knows who'll be president in 4 years. This whipsawing is just almost impossible to plan for in things that have 10 to 15 year lead time. So it does say, and I don't know many counties that have, I don't know any that have the expertise to do pipeline safety. We have a whole division at the IURC. The last thing it does is it says if the counties in the setbacks and so forth and the renewable company can't come to an agreement, they can appeal to the IURC. And the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission can then resolve it. And if that's still everyone's unhappy, you can go through the court system to the appellate court and the Supreme Court. So that pretty much gives shared governance. It severely limits the amount of land that can be used for renewable unless there's mutual agreement. But it does open the door to say to industry, Indiana is still open for business. So that is the amendment. Committee discussion. Will of the committee. Okay, the amendment.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the amendment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Can we take it by consent?
Consent.
Okay, it is now part of the bill. So we do need, my faithful lawyer to my left says we need to make a couple technical corrections, and I will make that a chairman's motion, but they are code sites. So would you share them with us?
This is on page 5 of the amendment, line 29. It reads set forth in IC. So eliminating the duplicate in IC. And then the same change, page 7, line 1.
Committee discussion. Pleasure of the committee.
Motion to accept the technical corrections.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Can we take it by consent? This is the easiest motion you're going to get in the next 4 months. So,
Mr.
well done.
Chairman?
Yes.
I think there's one more typo that is in, unfortunately, I spotted it in the merged version, so this is not going to sync up the way I need to, but there's a reference to when in the CSE systems, it says 8-1-42-10 through IC 8-1-427-20. And I think that's supposed to just be 42. So I've got to figure out how to get that translated over to the actual amendment, but it's in, let's see, what section is this? Looks like it's subsection H. Wait.
Go ahead.
Do you know what the sentence is? Can you give me this?
I think it's line 38 on page 5.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, so we would need an amendment, I believe, to delete 8-1-427-20 and insert 8-1-42-20.
Committee discussion. Seeing none. Can we take this? Consent. Done. Thank you. Another easy vote. Okay. We continued this hearing last time to let other people testify who have not testified. If you have, I see some people on the list here who testified last time, so I'm going to ask you, I've got to work against 2 lists here, but if you've testified once, you had your time. because we're running against the clock. So if I recognize and you come up here anyway, I'm just going to ask you to sit down because there just isn't enough time for 50 witnesses. So if you've never testified before Congress, you don't get to just show up. They invite you. So this is a privilege in Indiana that we try to hear everybody who drives here to speak. So don't feel offended, but one is enough. Okay. So with that, Mr. William Brown. Oh, William Brown. Go ahead.
Good morning. I am here to represent the people of Carroll County. Carroll County is that beautiful county that is in between Kokomo and Lafayette, if you're not sure where we are. Excuse me. I want to say that Chairman Holiday, I appreciate your...
It's Soliday, by the way.
Your,
Never mind.
Soliday. How you have, say you spent your weekend trying to find, is it not on?
No, you have to have a red light. There's a button there to push.
How do I turn on a red light? Down here?
Button there.
Blue light, got a red light. Got it. Okay. Well, I appreciate all of the time that has been spent on trying to figure out what's best. My role, as it has been for the last 7 terms that I've been a commissioner for Carroll County, is to represent those people. And when we began to have wind companies and solar companies coming in and looking at the purchasing or acquiring property in Carroll County, we realized that our zoning was not capable of handling it. Our area plan had not been structured for that. So we began a process to try to come up with something to be correct for it. We held 4 major meetings, which we asked for the opinions of the people, just like you're doing right now. And we had between 350 and 400 people show up for every one of those meetings, which for us is very good. What I can tell you is that if I said 90% of the people are all on one side of this, in as far as Carroll County people, there'd be some who would say, you're stretching it. But the truth is that I'm probably running it short. More than 90% of the people of Carroll County do not want wind and solar. They are very appreciative of our natural resources, of our Wabash River, of our Tippecanoe River, of the major creeks that we have, of the beauty of our county, and they do not want it blemished by these huge wind towers. I've heard it said that we're just old fuddy-duddies and don't know what's going on. I think that depends on where you live, you know, and as far as us not being one that would allow new things, we allow lots of new things. We have lots of new industry. We're a growing county. We're a prosperous county. We're building a $26 million jail, which we'll probably within a couple of years have to add on to. Many of you know those problems. Anyway, I wanted you to know, and I don't want to take up all your time because I know you got a lot of people out here talking, wanting to talk, but to think that our area plan, our careful planning and everything should be overridden, I think it's a mistake. And I think it's a mistake in every county. Yes, you're going to find differences of opinion, but that is the will of our people. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to sit now, but I want you to know that overwhelmingly, the people of Carroll County do not want wind and solar in their county. Thank you.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, Representative Wesco, you're moving forward. No. Thank you.
Thank you.
Connie Ehrlich. Folks, we need to limit ourselves to 4 minutes because we still have a lot of people. And it looks like we're going to be coming in this evening. So Connie Ehrlich. Okay. I don't see her. Kevin Walls.
Oh, they're right there next door. No.
You knew you shouldn't have stepped out, right?
I went over to the next door to listen to it. Sorry. Kevin Walls, Johnson County Commissioner. Thank you, Chairman Soliday again and committee for hearing me. We are neutral on this bill from Johnson County. We appreciate the amendment that was just put forth. It cleared up a lot of things for us. We do work with solar companies within Johnson County. With REMCs, we've worked with 2 different solar fields they put in, and I've dealt with another 500-acre field that is in queue right now. I don't know where it's going with the landowners and the developer. So I just wanted to say we're neutral. I know you guys have got your hands full with a lot here. So we've got planning and zoning set up for this, so we've got things handled. But the amendment really cleared a lot of stuff up for us, and it just happened just a few minutes ago. So I'm going to eliminate a lot of my talking.
Well, and just for folks who already have renewable, if you're at 2%, unless the commissioners and a developer agree, you're done.
Yeah, we're not at 2%.
Okay.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for
sir.
your time.
Questions? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming in. John Denmark.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Soliday and the chair and committee. I wanted to remind you, of course, Article 1, Section 1, power is in people. It's not in offices. Article 1, Section 25, and that no law should be passed without that requires the authority other than the Constitution. With that, I say that the power is in the people have spoken. People have clearly spoken even in your own county. They've said they don't want it. So it's real clear. One of 2 things. Either you've not educated people to the benefits versus the takeaway, or they already know. Now, for that, I say, you've mentioned several times about steel companies. Do you remember Continental Steel? 40 years ago, Continental Steel went out of business. They provided good jobs, pretty good insurance, health issues, but for 72 years. Then they went out. Within a year's time, they were the number 2 Superfund site in the world, just below Chernobyl. Now there are 53 Superfund sites in Indiana, of which now the steel mill is number 3. Okay, so they've cleaned it up. They've had to take out over 18 inches of topsoil, put new soil on. We're the ones that are going to have to live with it. The promise of new jobs, we need to be careful about it, and we're the ones that have to live with it. So we need the ones to be making the decision on what risk we're willing to take, not another group. Okay, so we as a people have spoken. When we've heard discussions and testimony earlier, it's about how to get around those people who are protesting. Those people are the people you represent, and that's why it says in front of these things, representatives. You represent the people, and the people of your area have spoken. You're not a very good representative if you don't heed what they're saying.
Have you polled in my area? Have you polled?
No, sir. I'm going by the news. The news says that it was voted down in your area. In our area, I know I'm from Carroll County. We have put it down completely, but it's not about whether we want renewables. The issue is whether we have the right to decide.
That is the issue.
We're the ones that have to live with it.
What are the limits?
What are our limits?
Yeah.
We went and put in limits that some people's intentions were to kibosh the whole thing. Okay, but most of it came from a real genuine concern of safety. Okay, you have over 120 gallons of oil on the top of those on top of those wind turbines. Okay, if those get struck by lightning, it doesn't happen a lot. It does happen. You're looking at a nice corn crop. You could lose the whole county. You're not gonna have a fire. I don't know any of you in the big cities here have a fire truck that's going to put up pressured water that high, out of one. So we're looking at getting fire suppression. So we put things that will protect us because we're the ones going to have to live with these mistakes. We're going to have to live with these. So we need to be the ones to make the decision as to whether we're willing to take that risk. So I hope you take that serious. And I do believe the addition to it, the amendment was decent, but I think it's kind of like feeding the alligator, hoping it eats you last. And when we give up our sovereignty in communities and state, then we're just opening up to mass rule by small people. So I thank you.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you. Connie Ehrlich. Connie Ehrlich. DeVon Cook.
Good morning, Chairman Soliday and members of the committee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. I'm Yvonne Koch, and I represent Boone County Republican Women's Club and the Indiana Federation of Republican Women, organizations dedicated to responsible governance and protecting the rights of Indiana citizens. We stand in firm opposition to HB 628. Because it undermines local control, silences communities, and violates the Indiana Constitution. This,
Are you a constitutional lawyer?
I am not,
No, thank you. Go ahead.
but I do have the book. So this bill takes away the ability of counties, towns, and cities to regulate major infrastructure projects, including power plants, transmission lines, pipelines, and gas storage facilities. Instead, it gives exclusive authority to the state, cutting local governments and citizens out of the decision-making process. In the Indiana Constitution, Article 1, Section 25 clearly states that the General Assembly cannot grant unchecked power beyond what is explicitly outlined in law. HB 1628 does exactly that. It removes the oversight that local governments have always had and prevents communities from protecting their homes, businesses, and farmlands. If this bill becomes law, companies will no longer need local permits, zonings, approvals, or community input before moving forward with large-scale industrial projects. There will be no public hearings, no opportunity for residents to express their concerns, no way for local officials to intervene, even if a project threatens property values, public safety, or the environment. Imagine waking up to find a high voltage transmission substation, gas storage facility, or industrial energy project being built next to your home, your business, or your child's school, without knowledge, without a vote, without no way to stop it. That is the reality this bill creates. Beyond silencing communities, HB 628 also weakens protections for the stormwater runoff and flood control, leaving local communities and governments unable to regulate new developments that could lead to flooding and water contamination. So the question is, who benefits from this? Not the people from Indiana. This bill serves corporate developers and special interests, not homeowners, small businesses, or farmers. Prioritizes expedient approvals and corporate profits over the rights of the citizen who have spent their entire lives building their communities. Indiana has long followed home rule authority, the principle that local governments should have the power to govern their own affairs. 1628 completely dismantles that principle. It tells Hoosiers that their voice does not matter when it comes to what happens in their own backyards. Every legislator here took an oath to uphold the Indiana Constitution and defend the rights of their constituents. Supporting HB 1628 is a direct violation of that oath. We urge you to reject this bill and stand with the people of Indiana.
Questions? Yes, Representative Wesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Cook,
you mentioned the Indiana Federation of Republican Women. Are you speaking on behalf of the Indiana Federation of Republican Women? Has the organization taken an official position on this bill?
Yes.
They've met and taken a position.
I spoke with the president. Yes.
So just a couple questions. So since you're a constitutional, well-read in the Constitution, can you tell me, does it address property rights? The rights of the farmer, the rights of the property owner?
It's what it does. It takes away the power from the people. So if the state is coming in control, I am not a constitutional attorney.
No. You've dropped the Constitution. You've said we're violating our oath that we took, which quite frankly is insulting.
I don't mean to insult you.
Oh,
one
yes,
bit.
you do. When you say that this group is violating the oaths they took, I don't violate oaths.
Okay. So Article 1, Section 25 says, no law shall be passed, the taking effect which shall be made to depend on any authority except as provided in this Constitution. So the section states that the General Assembly cannot grant powers beyond what is expressly outlined in law.
Where does local control come from? Is it in the Constitution? It is not. It was passed by the legislature.
But this is an overreach that contradicts Indiana Home Rule Act, IC 36-1-3, which grants local governments broad powers.
Which we have limited regularly. So thank you for your testimony, but a little bit of hyperbole, which has been the problem of trying to find some solutions. And when you start telling people that they are violating their oath, some of us took a bullet for this country. So when you say those kind of things, that is more than offensive. So other questions? Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Richard Bagsby.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Richard Bagsby. Mr. Pressel, good to see you as well. I'm a third generation Hoosier. My wife and I have 8 children, 3 of which are adults who are married, and combined they have had 6 of our grandchildren. I'm a landowner, farmer, realtor, businessman, and assistant pastor. Most of all, I'm a concerned citizen. I also speak for the concerned citizens that align with my ideology: Tippecanoe County, Carroll County, Clinton County, White County, Montgomery County, and the other 87 counties of Indiana, whose local residents are just as confused and upset just with the premise of this bill. Mr. Chairman, you said last week that we need to decide what Indiana is to become. I believe as a supermajority, Indiana can achieve the very foundation of what it means to be a free people with limited government. The very idea of Hoosier freedom is an act in which an individual has inalienable rights to his or her persons, property, lawful pursuits of desires. In Indiana, as well as other territories in our country, it is the duty of our elected officials to not allow anyone to infringe upon these rights. House Bill 1628 not only would infringe on these rights, in my opinion, by means of eminent domain not found in the language, but should be assumed, completely steamrolls over the local government, which acts as a first line of defense in protecting the free people of Indiana from higher governments. I find a large portion of the language found in HB 1628 very troubling for me and many others in my community, such as the ability to provide for the preemption of all other regulations by a political subdivision or a local government agency of the siting, construction, or deployment of any facilities, equipment, or infrastructure with respect to a multi-jurisdictional infrastructure project. The word preemption in context with the above bill reference simply is a legal doctrine that allows a higher level of government to limit, or even in some cases eliminate, the power of a lower level government to regulate a specific issue. The issues in question, if passed, is the ability for big corporations to streamline the process to essentially terraform entire areas inside small town Indiana and rural communities of Indiana like Tippecanoe County and Carroll County without consulting with the very people who lives in these communities. Sir, I believe that the job of a lawmaker, especially the Republican lawmakers of this body, is to limit the overreach of government. This bill was created by Representative Snow, who as a Republican, we the people expect to stand on conservative principles. I believe he missed the mark with this bill, and I'm not sure what or who motivated him, a conservative leader, to create such a gross violation of not only Republican conservative values, in my opinion, but also individual property rights, given the fact that with such a bill, eminent domain could rightly be assumed to come into play. In conclusion, as a solution towards the salvaging of this bill, I would like to recommend that the preemptive language be stripped from the language of this bill. If not, I and my fellow concerned citizens would be disappointed that the chairman of this committee would allow this bill as is to be voted out of committee. In respect, Mr. Soliday, Chairman, to your amendment. So I would urge this committee to kill this bill right here and right now as is. Thank you for your time.
You said it could be modified, but then you said kill it, which is it?
No, I said that as is. If it's as is, with given the preemptive language, I'm sorry, in which I said I respect that you did amend it, but I believe the solution for me personally, I also represent friends of mine, Joe Sturm, who comes from Tippecanoe County, and also Mark Hufford, whose family was founding families of Carroll County. What I'm saying is, with this bill, as is, with respect to the amendment, if the preemptive language is not removed, I believe it should be killed. Hopefully I cleared that up for you.
Do you think any one county, 8,000 people,
Yes, sir.
should be able to kill a $10 billion project or $10 billion worth of jobs?
I think the people of Indiana should be above monetary gain. And I do understand the tax implications of that. Don't get me wrong. I just look like this. But I will say that outside of the money, the monetary gain, I think the people of Indiana, especially my county, or especially me, I would like to have a say-so in how we do it. It's not that I'm against solar. Go ahead.
We're not talking about solar. We're the preemptive language.
Yes, sir.
So you feel a county should be able to block
I believe
coming into the county?
I believe it is within, I believe it is within, with all due respect, I believe that it is within the rights of those people in that community, that lives in that community, that knows their own community, to be able to have a say-so what we do in our community.
So it is a binary answer.
You would like a yes or no?
Yeah.
Of course.
I believe the county should be able, 8,000 people should be able to block a $10 billion pipeline. Because 3 commissioners don't like it.
I think the 3 commissioners are backed by the very people that they represent. So I would say yes to your answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Kyle Barlow.
Time. I'll keep it short. I don't do all the
I
pleasantries.
think we've seen you before.
Many times. So I am a farmer from Shelby County. I'm also on the Shelby County Council. Been elected a little over 2 years now. And the reason I got onto the council and ran predominantly was how I was treated by my local elected officials about industrial solar. And therefore I decided that if they were going to listen to me, I had to sit on the other side of the table. So I'm against this bill, amendments and all. You can ask me whatever you want. Usually most people don't ask me questions, but I'm going to go right in here to the projected tax income that we talk about. I sat in a finance meeting in my county the other day. Our financial advisor said personal property tax could potentially go away in the next few years with legislation from the State House. That's what he said. That's what he said. Okay. If that happens, that is the only benefit our county gets from these projects. They try to abate taxes, and I'm going to do solar, but this bill really isn't just about solar or wind. It's about 8 different animals that we're trying to put into one bill. Pipelines. Pipeline went through my county many years ago. At that point, the county officials took care of it. So natural gas pipeline or LP, I'm not sure exactly which, went through farm ground. If personal property tax is repealed, and that's a big if, you keep talking about jobs. These are not local jobs. They don't stay here. There is a solar plant being built in Morristown, Indiana right now in my county. I implore you to please go and look at it. They have tore up the roads. They actually tore the drainage up to the point where our surveyor was there, and they told him to get off the property, to which our commissioners had to issue a stop work order and go up and hash all this out. This project has granted Shelby County $0 to my knowledge right now. 0. 4 years it's been going on. They promised schools money. They haven't got it. So you all tell me where the benefit of this is. $10 billion projects, data centers. I was at a meeting last night in my county. Just found out there's a data center wanting to come, right? I don't know the company. I wasn't told. I wasn't privy to that information, but I'm going to use a company like Amazon. Amazon sold textbooks 20 years ago, and we're letting them push policy in our state now because they're worth billions. I get it. But are the people that sit at the top of the Amazon, are they the ones that you guys hear the most? Or is it us, the people? I do like the other farmer's speech back here, and I'm going to touch on, you had said, Mr. Soliday, people took a bullet for this country. My grandfather fought in World War II, Battle of the Bulge. He actually studied agriculture in Germany for the 6 months he had to peacekeep, the only soldier to do so. And when I asked him, what did you think of Germany? And he's deceased many years ago. He goes, I could have lived there if I could have farmed. So to explain to all of you people what these farmers, what these country folk, my grandfather came home with the money he'd had from the war. He started a life with my grandmother. There was not a farm there. His father was a tenant farmer and a bus driver. All of these projects look at, exerting their influence on that. And I guess these countrified people, they don't like it. And you all know that. You all should know that. That's why we fight so hard. So that's all I had. The amendments, whatever. This takes local control away. I fought hard, beat an incumbent in my county to get this seat. The only issue I will get to even hash anything out on the solar project is if we give them an abatement or claim it an ERA. Everything else is zoning. I do not agree with giving companies abatements that in the end will offer 2 jobs, very little tax revenue, and they've already lied to our county multiple times. Pipelines are a different animal. Data centers are a different animal. I don't know how all that will go, but I have full, I believe my county will be able to handle those, as we've just had other people get reelected here. And we had, so to answer your question about moratoriums, I don't know who asked that the other day. We had a moratorium. They extended it. They extended it a second time. It expired on January 31st, and we are not extending it again. We redid our ordinance through a committee. I was on that committee. I was one of the against people. There were pro people. There were lawyers involved, and we came up with our own ordinance. Doors open now. Come apply. They won't. They don't like our setbacks. Well, I'm sorry, but that's what we decided. And if you ask, our setbacks are 660 feet from a non-participating, it used to be dwelling. Now it's from the property line, as all zoning should be. These companies have came in and pushed their way around, and we're letting them. That's all I have. Anybody has any questions? I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilman, what is your feeling on the amendment that we amended into the bill?
First time I heard it was 10 minutes ago sitting here. So to tell you honestly what my opinion is, I haven't read it. I haven't got to read the language. I don't make knee-jerk reactions. So our county in our ordinance put a 1% cap on, which was balked at by the renewables people immensely, didn't like it. None of this was my input, believe it or not. Nothing I wanted got in, I guess.
How's most of your soil in your county?
Most of it's A1, A2, A3. There are others. I mean, I'd have to look at a soil map and tell you, the truth to give you an actual answer. but there's a lot of prime farm ground in my county. And we are the last donut county to be developed. And I will say, like I said, to many economic development people, you go litter in this land with 4,000 and 5,000 acres of solar panels. All you development people, you may want that land back someday. Just think about that. Because once it's taken, it's not going back to farming. Mr. Culp can attest to that. It doesn't matter. You can come in, tear it all out, but your ordinance better state they tear everything out. They put it back to normal. It's never happened, to my knowledge, across this country. Solar's so new. Will any of us be around in 30 or 40 years to hold them accountable if they don't do their job? And we need to do, there's so many bad things to this. And I've been, the only positive I get is business wants it and it's tax based for your county. 4 years in Shelby County, to my knowledge, and I sit on the county council, we've received nothing. Now then everybody says when it generates electricity, that's when you'll get paid. Well, we're still waiting. We got schools that were promised money 4 years ago. They thought they were getting that money soon from that company. I've yet to meet a good solar developer. We had two in our county, but this one's better. Guess what? They're not. They're going to do what's best for them. All right. Sorry.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. Dennis Boak.
Yes.
UPE, come on forward, Dennis.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I happen to live, I have land and I live in Mr. Culp's district, and I have land in Mr. Pressel's district. And I do a lot of my shopping in Valpo. My name's Dennis Boak, and I am a retired farmer. And I'll just take my cheat sheet out if you don't mind. I'd like to give you a view from the farm, my personal view from the farm. And our farm has got we have a good company. I like them. They've been honorable. Their name is Doral, and it's the Mammoth Solar Project. And it's in Stark County, and it's completed, and it's generating electricity. And just to give you an idea of what kind of income, I got 144 acres in Stark County. And of that, we paid taxes this year. $16,000 were paid by the Doral company, Mammoth. And I think $2,500 was my cost of the county. So that was real money into the county. That's just one field. And I realized that when you mentioned sand, or you mentioned types of soil, Stark County's got some good soil. Like we're up by Jim's sister, there's some really good soil, but down by us, it's sand. And if we didn't have irrigation, the northern part of Pulaski County near the game area, it's not very good soil. So as a retired person, I was cash renting my ground. And so now I'm cash renting it to a solar company. But we're also adding a twist to that. Rather than just have a lot of glass out there, we are incorporating sheep grazing to verify this. You can just Google my address and you can see from Google Earth, you can see the sheep. And also, in addition to that, we raise crops on the outside. All the land that has been under the solar's contract, we raise corn and beans on this one field I mentioned before. We have 30 acres that we continue to raise corn and beans, and we have sheep on the inside, and then outside of the fence we have hay. And you can see this all from Google Earth. You can see the crops, and so it's a moving. And so my brother owns a sheep. I didn't want to get involved in owning sheep. So my brother is owning a sheep. His herd is now very large. It's over 1,000. And it's already, it's a moving family business that goes hand in hand with solar. Not all solars have sheep, but at least from our area and our farm, that's a view from our farm. And as we extend out, it's been I just noticed it's been the last 3 years at the zoning meetings, at the planning commission, at the commissioners meeting, and the county representatives meetings. It's always a war, and it's always the same argument. And so when I heard about this bill, it would solve some of that. But I don't like the fact that the state could take a hammer and smack the local government, but the local government is in disarray. The legislative branch is not working. There's adversarial, and they have their views, and there's people like us, farmers, that have their views, and there's many people that are, the majority are neutral. And so that's when I asked Jim, I said, is there any way that the state could help the local? And he said, Dennis, I believe it's IURC, he said they are covered up in work. And he wasn't aware of any way that what you're saying with this state, where you could slap the commissioners and the county council with a fly swatter instead of using a stick. I don't know if there's a way, and I hope that there is, because if there was be a guidance of how you work here, you guys are going to vote on this, you're going to go before the Senate, and you're going to try to make a bill. It's not working at the county levels, and I speak from Stark County, and I speak from Pulaski County. I've been to both meetings, and it's constant argument and disarray. And much of it is false information. And on one side, they are proud and they are angry. And on our side, we're considered greedy. We're considered greedy and ignorant. So I don't think of myself as greedy or ignorant, but the accusation is there. And so this is what we have in our counties. And we need help. We need this bill. I don't understand all the ramifications of it. And I would not like a hammer on my commissioner. But something has to be done. Where us as landowners, the majority of people in this, now we are over the 2%. So I know that we're disqualified with that.
That's
But
not true.
pardon?
The commissioners and the petitioner want to go over 2%, they can. As the previous witness said, most of his county is rated number 1. You can't build any renewable under the amendment if you are 1 through 4.
Okay.
Unless the county commissioners agree with the petitioner.
Yes.
So there's no way under the amendment. So we need to move on.
Okay, I will. Thank you very much.
Anyone have questions before he leaves?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Nobody raised their hand. Janet Gernon. No. Going once. Oliver Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. In keeping with the chairman's request last week, Oliver Berry with Board Public Affairs here on behalf of Doral Renewables today. We support 1628. Obviously, still digesting and working through the amendment, but we like the direction this is headed. And we put a high priority, just for the record, on bearing our burden with the local leaders of any community we operate in. We pride ourselves on the relationships built with our local officials and landowners, and this relationship will continue through the lifespan of the project. We also strive to address planning, permitting, and zoning concerns, and we work tirelessly to ensure landowners, their neighbors, and local elected officials are well informed regarding all aspects of the project and that their concerns are addressed. I ask you to support this bill. Thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Barbara Neal Hauser. Not here. Mark Hufford. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was waiting in the other room, so. Thank you for your time, consideration today. My name is Barbara Nyhauser. I'm from Jasper County. And, I read the newspaper here and there, and I get paper from Northwest Indiana, and it's called the Times. And so I was interested in this article, and I'll read you a couple parts from it. When our legislature enacted, this is me talking. I'll tell you where the quotes are at. But when our legislature enacted the Indiana Data Center tax incentive, it created a frenzy in mega corporations locating their data centers in Indiana. So the Times, the magazine, or the what article?
Go ahead. Never mind.
Okay. Joseph Pete.
Oh, Joe.
Joseph Pete. So it says in the Times, 8/18/24, that the article states that this incentive, and I quote, offers tax exemptions on energy and equipment for new data centers built in Indiana for up to 50 years, which was the longest exemption period in any state when it was passed. And another quote from the Times from Northwest Indiana is, it is estimated the owner of each data center can save $1.75 million to $10.5 million in taxes in Indiana. So honestly, in my lifetime, and probably your lifetime, with tax incentives given for that long, I won't see that in my lifetime. I will not see the full exposure to the taxes that this could generate in my lifetime. The data in 50 years, they'll be obsolete and disrepair, and I'll be pushing up daisies. So, so these data centers, they take a lot of energy, they take a lot of water, and they're not the only things. People use water, so do universities, so do manufacturers, whatever. But the one thing about these data centers coming in is they take a lot of energy and a lot of water. So Indiana, along with the other I states around this, Iowa and Illinois, we're agricultural states. So we need land, prime farmland, and water to grow crops. Energy is great. We all need energy. I agree. I understand that, but we can't eat it. And sometimes we need to ask ourselves, are these things a good fit? Are these things a good fit? So now we have a conundrum. So we have all these data centers trying to come in, and because we got these tax incentives and exemptions, and we don't have enough energy and we don't have enough water. So to solve this problem, the state's going to pass, because the county's been putting in moratoriums and, types of things. And, in Tippecanoe County, there's all the water fights going down to Boone County and all of that. So now, okay, so then, so this.
By the way, ma'am, there are no water pipes going to Boone County.
Not yet. I know.
Not even planned. All that was resolved last year.
Okay, good. So, but we do have water problems of whose jurisdiction they are. So the state wants to pass 1628, which is going to take all local controls, such as permitting, zoning for the energy generation facilities, including like electricity, gases, fluids, water, and some of us, with the kind of the language, you might kind of wonder, is there some carbon sequestration, that type of thing, going to be used with this bill?
Is carbon dioxide banned?
Is it banned?
Bad.
Yeah. I know it's not bad. Carbon dioxide that's what is used to grow the crops. I mean, a lot of crops, they do better when they have more carbon dioxide in the air.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
So does Pepsi, Coke, beer, whatever.
I'm trying to limit my sodas.
Yeah, I understand.
Too much sugar in there.
We're talking about the danger of CO2. I just want to be sure I understand what the danger of CO2 is.
I guess I don't see as much danger as some other people, because that's what the trees are green, the crops are green, and all of that. So I would just really, this just doesn't seem to fit. 1628 does not seem to be good for our state. It doesn't seem to be good for our local control. And I would just encourage you all to vote no on House Bill 1628, because I just don't feel like it's a good fit.
Did you listen to the amendment at all?
Yes, I did.
So you think 2% of the land is too much to have in renewable, and it's only the very worst farmland in the state?
Well, the thing of it, House Bill 1628 is that it encompasses so many different things. So it also is talking about water in here. And when you talk about gases, it could be carbon dioxide. So the whole thing, it's just, it's not like somebody said, it's not just 1 or 2 animals. It's like 8 animals all put into this bill.
Water bill coming over from the Senate. What it reiterates is law that goes back to 1880 about water use.
Mm-hmm.
And we have counties, I know one, I don't know whether the ordinance is passed or not, but a city in one county wanted to share water with a town in another county. So the commissioners decided to ban water leaving their county. That will last about 30 seconds before the Supreme Court. That's where we're like, how far out of control do we let this thing do? What are the limits of local control? How can we have joint governance over this issue so there is input from both sides? Here's the issue we're trying to address. As far as data centers, every state, we happen to be one of the first. Loudoun County has 186 data centers in one county. So this data centers are evil, and we tried to pin down last week what new technology is evil. Are chip factories evil that need to be banned at the local level? Where I live, a whole lot of people in 9 counties work in the mills. So I just heard we shouldn't care about money, which means we shouldn't care about our kids having jobs here in our state. So I trying to sort through that. How do we make this? It's not that we want their money. We want their jobs. We want our kids to stay here. So again, thank you for your testimony. Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Mark Hufford. There we go, Mark.
Thank you, Chairman, this committee. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning. I am from Carroll County. I'm 7 generations. My family was the founders of the town of Flora. My 19-year-old daughter is sitting over here because she cares about these issues. She's with me here today. I've never done this kind of thing before. I didn't even know anything about my local and state government until COVID overreach. Okay, sorry, I'm a pastor. I'll ramp it back a little bit. I'm not going to preach.
We have one on the committee here, so.
All right, I apologize. My voice does carry. But during COVID, we saw state overreach. And it was very apparent in our community and across the state, and we're paying the price today. And I'm thankful that the Trump administration is trying to rectify what we've seen in state overreach and federal overreach, and perhaps it'll trickle down. So I come here today as a concerned citizen of Carroll County. Our family farms several thousand acres across Carroll County, White County, and Howard County. We do care about our soil. It's hard to get farmland. When land comes available, we talk about soils 1, 2, and 3. We have all 5 in Carroll County, White, and Cass County, and Howard County. But I'll tell you what, as a farmer, when a piece of land comes available because a farmer is retiring, there's 3 or 4 farmers lining up to try to get it. It's hard to make a living as a farmer. And a lot of people, you talk about Chairman Soliday about children leaving. Farming family children are leaving because they can't grow the farm enough to sustain children. We're passionate about this. This is who we are. This is who I am as a core. And so to come in here and hear representatives that's probably never scooped a bit of chicken manure, probably never smelt cow manure, or ran a load of hogs on a possum belly, or ran a bushel of corn into a hopper bottom, and them to tell us what to do with our farmland, it's offensive to me.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
What about farmers who want to use their farmland? What about property rights?
I understand that.
By the way, there are a number of farmers sitting down from me here, so
I understand that.
So,
yeah.
Let's try not to pigeonhole people.
I'm not pigeonholing them at all.
Well, you just said none of us had done any of that stuff, so.
I didn't say that. I'm sorry. if I did say that, I take that back. I'm just saying, those of you that are farmers, I think maybe you're a farmer, you understand how hard it is to get farmland. You're a farmer. You understand. And the state's asking us to give up the worst of soil. Some of my farms is some of that 4 and 5. But do I want to give it up? No, because I raise hay on that land. And it's for my cows. And yes, I understand solar panels and wind energy. I can get more return from those outside sources, but that violates the pride of being an Indiana farmer. I don't harness solar energy or wind energy. I grow crops. That's who my wife's family is. And that's who my family is. So I have 3 objections to this. I know it's a hard subject. We dealt with it in Carroll County. I get it. I know. But I do want to compliment our commissioner and our board of commissioners. They worked hard because it was a heated subject. And I don't envy you guys because this is a very difficult place. I want to show my respect and appreciation that you're willing to press into this. But the reality is, I was here a week ago, and as I was walking off the steps out here, it just dawned on me that real life doesn't happen in that building, this building. Real life happens out there in the fruited plains of Indiana. And I know you guys are doing a hard job, and I appreciate that, but I do oppose this bill as it stands. I'm not opposed to solar or wind or advanced technologies like it's already been addressed, but I do oppose this. The reason, I have 3 reasons. The first I'll speed it up. The first one is farmland. I want to protect our farmland. The second one is one I didn't experience till I sat in here last week and I was astounded. I felt like that approaching this subject is violating the very founding principles of America, and that is we the people by the people. It's my personal opinion, no disrespect to you, but it says representative ahead of each one of your names, and I think that means you represent some people back home. So does our local politicians, our local commissioners. What do they want? Because what I heard in here yesterday or a week ago and what I've heard this morning, I hear more concern about businesses wanting to come to this state. I'm okay with that. I'm pro-business, but don't do it at the expense of who you represent at home. Please. I think your people are too high of character to make that mistake. But there are real people at home that put their pants on, that go out and do their job every day.
Okay. You're out of time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time.
And so you actually speak for my constituents?
Okay.
Is that what you're saying? Is that your testimony?
No, but I think your commissioners do.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, question. Thank you, Mr. Hufford. How many of the acres that you farm do you own?
Do we own? About 1,200 acres.
Permission for another question?
Sure.
So
I want to clarify. Our family owns 1,200 acres. My wife and I own a little over 100 acres ourselves personally.
But you said you farm thousands of acres. So
That's
you're
correct.
concerned that some of the owners of this ground could put it out to solar and therefore it would be inaccessible to you as a farmer to lease that ground for farming.
Correct, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
Thank you for your testimony. And you're right. I have done all of those things that you listed. I sat on that side of the table as a local official too, as your fellow commissioners from Carroll County. I represent White County, which we share some water, which goes over into Carroll County. I guess my question is more of an observation, but when I was working with developers in our county, we had I won't go into all that, but we had people on both sides, obviously, of the issue. And what I didn't feel like I had the authority to do was, first of all, to understand the financial positions that some landowners were in.
Sure.
You're right. It's tough on the farm today. It's very tough financially. So what was brought to me is some families could own, say, 1,000 acres, as you said, and they wanted to bring that next generation back to the family farm. And they said, well, I'm willing to lease half of our 1,000 acres for a use that I'll get about 5 times the return I would from ag, take that dollar to bring the next generation back, and also to expand our operation, because now I have cash that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I'm not sure that's a question, but I think that's something to consider, whether we like that or not. I mean, if we're gonna believe in property rights, and those personal decisions, I struggled as a local official to try to make decisions that could adversely affect the financial well-being of property owners and citizens in my district, and I struggled with that. So in the end, I really relied on it's a local decision. I'm sorry that was more of a comment than a question, but I do understand what you're saying, and it's a great example. But I think we have to be careful as local officials that we don't overstep to try to make decisions what we think might be best for others, when in fact it might actually harm them.
I appreciate that. Can I make a brief comment?
You had quite a bit of time. Go ahead.
I apologize. My neighbor talked about having solar, 6 acres next door to me. And I understand that, you know what I'm saying? He was looking into that option, but we have a relationship. And I think bringing it back to the local level, like you're suggesting, our commissioners know their neighbors. They're going to have to deal with the heat or the blessing, and neighbors just have to work it out. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Karen Trimble.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative Soliday, Chair Soliday, and to the committee. My name is Karen Trimble. I work as a land agent, and I reside here in Indiana, but I've worked all over the country as a land agent. First off, land agents typically don't work on commission, so just get that out of the way. Part of my job as a land agent is to go door to door, and I end up talking to probably about 20 or 30 different landowners and farmers every week. As a little bit of a background, I just wanted to say my background is in commercial real estate. I spent 15 years in law firms and 15 years in banking, representing and managing commercial real estate lending groups, and that'll be relevant in a moment. But for the past 2.5 years, I've done this job of being a land agent, and there's a few things that I've learned about farmers. One of them is they're incredibly hardworking. They're very proud of what they do, and they love it. And in addition, they work on very, very thin margins. And as a former banker, I can tell you how important that is when you're going to a bank and you need a farm loan for equipment or for grain for the next year. When a farmer signs up a lease, by the way, that's always voluntary. There's nothing that a developer can do that can force a farmer to sign a lease for solar, for wind. But when a farmer sits down and signs a lease for a project, their anticipation is that will go through, and they are counting on those as income. I was sitting with a farm family, and the son, who was about 40 years old, he was talking about participating in the project, and he very clearly correlated his production of corn for ethanol with the renewable energy project need, the development of that need, as meeting a future demand for electricity and as a stable source of income for his business model and operating his farm. In that particular county and that area of intent that covered there, a majority of the farmers want to participate in this project. Currently, right now, with the current climate, there is a commissioner they're looking to put a 2-year moratorium on this project. That area of interest covers about 33,000 acres, which is maybe a quarter of the entire county. So it doesn't affect the entire county. I do really hear that there's a number of counties that are legitimately looking to create good and workable ordinances to accommodate diverse opinions as much as they reasonably can. But it's also become evident that the moratorium is really being utilized as a method to stop projects, irrespective of the needs of the particular county or the needs of the farmers. I do believe that by creating consistent set of ordinances at the state level allows for a level of trust for the farmers also in terms of this process. So that's really it. And thank you very much. I just wanted to I wanted to also reiterate, I appreciate the perspective of the farmers because that doesn't always come through. There's a lot of very, very loud voices right now that are against this. And a lot of the farmers are very intimidated by those voices, irrespective of the fact, in this particular area interest where I'm working in, they are the minority. So I appreciate the gentleman farmer who brought that to your attention and also just like to indicate my support.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for being here. David Ober.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. David Ober with Indiana Chamber of Commerce. Just want to say that we support the bill and appreciate the amendments. One point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, because I was sitting behind the pillar and couldn't quite hear. So the 20% variance on the standards that can be set,
We changed it to 50.
it's 50. Okay, clarifying that it is 50. Okay, appreciate that clarification. So support the bill with the amendments. Obviously, this is a very hard balance to strike between being partnered with local units that have, very different opinions on this issue. But at the end of the day, we feel that there's a state interest and there are parochial interests at the local level, and they are conflicting. And it is causing issues with meeting reliability and resource adequacy demands in the state. And it's your unenviable position to have to fix it. 1628 is a good step forward. It puts in some measures that help balance this out. But our position is that due process is afforded to all at the IURC. That is where these decisions belong. If there are interested parties who would like to be heard, they can introduce evidence and it can be given appropriate weight, and then a decision can be rendered. A lot of conversation has been paid to wind and solar, but this also applies to energy and pipelines and lots of major natural gas storage, water, and others. There's a ton of economic development that we stand to gain from, and appreciate the effort of 1628. I would be happy to take any questions.
Questions? Yes. Representative Wesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Ober. When IURC commissioners might take these issues into consideration, are they familiar with every part of the state where these projects are being put? Do they know the people there? What's the, is there any geographic diversity required of the members on the commission? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, there's no geographic diversity required to be appointed to the commission. The current commission has members that are from various parts of the state, southern Indiana, central Indiana. When I was a member of the commission, northern Indiana was familiar with many of the communities around the northern part of the state. There is a requirement that at least one member be an attorney, and the commission is staffed with engineers, attorneys, folks that are from all walks, but have very specific expertise in the areas that they regulate. And so I would say with certainty that there's adequate expertise and knowledge to be able to balance the interests of various parts of the state with the state's interests of maintaining a reliable energy grid.
Other questions? Seeing none.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for being here. Dan Straka. Hey, Dan.
Hello.
Recognize.
Good morning, Chairman. I guess good afternoon. I said good morning on my paper, so I read it. My name is Dan Straka. I'm with the Land and Liberty Coalition. We're a state-based group of local farmers, landowners, and key stakeholders who support utility-scale energy development while upholding private property rights, economic growth, and responsible land stewardship. We've been around the state for the last 5 years. We've done work in about 64 of the 92 counties around the state. And we've seen firsthand how the current zoning process is unpredictable, inconsistent, and often used as a tool to block development entirely, rather than as a means for responsible planning. But that's why we're here today. So we know that. And we also know that Indiana is falling behind in energy development, as demonstrated by data from MISO interconnection queue. Over the past 7 years, only 13.5% of wind projects have been approved, while 56.8% have been withdrawn, many due to regulatory barriers. For solar, just 14.4% of projects gained approval, while 37.5% withdrew, and many remain stalled in the queue. As we see, there's an ongoing theme here. The approval rate for battery storage projects is even lower at just 6.7%, with 24.8% withdrawn. Even projects that clear the queue face long delays. On average, wind and solar projects wait 3 years before approval, while battery projects wait 3.5 years. At the local level, moratoriums and restrictive ordinances further hinder energy development. Across Indiana, we've tracked about 58 county solar ordinances, including 7 current solar moratoriums, 56 county wind ordinances with currently 10 moratoriums, and on average, those wind ordinances are significantly more restrictive than solar. So several counties have also enacted battery storage moratoriums. In fact, tomorrow I'll be at a meeting in Stark County where they are going to enact a solar and battery storage moratorium. So that'll be interesting. Those moratoriums typically last 1 to 2 years, as we all know, and they delay these projects at length. But even if these ordinances are good in counties, even if a developer might feel that it's a workable ordinance, projects are still being denied despite meeting every requirement. Just last year, we tracked a solar project in Bartholomew County where the ordinance seemed development friendly, yet the project was still rejected by the BZA. This reflects a larger pattern that ordinances appear to be reasonable on paper, but are used as tools to prevent development rather than regulate it fairly. As far as Amendment 5, I would just like to say that we believe that the 2% land cap as well as the class restrictions are a bit redundant. As we know, transmission kind of regulates how much energy can be put onto the grid in a certain area anyway. We believe that private property owners should have the right. I know that there's a provision in there for counties allowing the different classes, 1 through 4 class for development if they so choose. So we appreciate that, but we believe that if the state is going to regulate it in any way, they should allow any private property owner to use their land as they choose. Just as an aside, there's somewhere around 14.5 million acres of tillable farmland in the state of Indiana. If you covered 3.5% of that farmland in solar panels, it would power the entire state's needs for energy generation. So 2% is not a lot, and I'm sure my time's running up here soon. So I want to just thank you for the time. We realize that this is a lengthy issue. There's a lot of meat to it. So we're excited that the chair and the committee is taking this up, and looking forward to a decision on it. There we go.
Questions? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. Chris Kunkel. Chris here. Hey, Chris.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Chris Kunkel. I work for a company called Apex Clean Energy. We are a leading developer, owner, operator of energy infrastructure projects all over the country. To date, we've commercialized about 10,000 megawatts of clean energy projects representing about $15 billion of American investment and helping to power hundreds of thousands of American homes. Here in Indiana, unfortunately, I don't have any projects to come and brag about. We have been trying to develop these infrastructure projects in the state for almost a decade at this point, but due to unworkable local ordinances, we've been unable to bring that investment into the state. I would like to highlight one specific case study, I guess, for how this process has worked for us or not. We began developing a utility scale wind energy project in Montgomery County in 2016. After multiple years of development work, signing up voluntary land leases, working with the county, securing a contract to provide the power to an Indiana utility, in mid-2019, the county adopted a new ordinance that didn't just kill that project, but killed any other similar infrastructure project within its 504 square mile jurisdiction. There were a number of provisions in this ordinance that were specifically intended to stop this project. One example being a 32 decibel noise limit. By comparison, a whisper from 5 feet away is 34 decibels. Looking back, what I wanted to talk about today was looking back 5 years after the fact, through three lenses: property tax revenue, property rights, and energy production. If this project had been allowed to proceed, it would have paid out over $11 million in tax revenue in that short amount of time. And unfortunately, for the 4,000 residents of the three townships that were most impacted by the project, their property taxes have gone up about 10% during that time. Over the life of the project, this would have paid out over $45 million. So as we're talking about other property tax reforms, this is the type of investment that would be helping to plug holes. Second is property rights, and that seems to be a theme of the discussion today. This was definitely a tough pill to swallow for us as a company, right? We lost a lot of money in this, but it really left a bad taste in the mouth of the 150 landowners that had voluntarily signed up to participate in this project. If the project had been built 5 years ago, we would have paid out over $16 million already to these families. Over the life of the project, $100 million. That's life-changing money for these folks, right? And again, without that investment, I hope these folks have been able to keep the farms in their families. But this was a lifeline for a lot of people when we were in that community. And third, lost energy generation. This project would have provided around 1 million megawatt hours per year. And, you know, by comparison, the Michigan City coal plant produces about 1.4 million megawatt hours per year. As this committee is well aware, electric demand is on the rise, and affordable, reliable, available electricity is a key tool to market the state for economic development opportunities. And had the county allowed the project to proceed, we would have been contributing to that. So in closing, we are supportive of the direction of House Bill 1628. I think we're still trying to digest the amendments that I think are quite substantive. And I think immediately have some ideas for ways to keep working on that. And we look forward to continuing to work through the process. But at the end of the day, setting a stable, uniform permitting process for energy infrastructure allows local governments to capture available revenue opportunities, protects property rights so that Hoosier landowners can maximize the value of their land, and ensures that the state will have the continued production of affordable, reliable energy.
Questions for Mr. Kunkel? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just real briefly, I've heard through testimony from last week and a little bit here today, and I've talked with some of my county commissioners, and I'm just curious, if the federal government were to cut subsidies into some of these projects, since you're a developer, you're going to know this, hopefully, would these projects continue? Do you have to have that federal subsidy to make these work?
It's a great question. Thank you. I think it's a complicated answer. We will pay what the market will bear, right? Or we will produce projects if the market will bear those costs, right? Tax credits do not go to the bottom line of Apex Clean Energy. They are returned to ratepayers through the reduced production cost of power, right? So if the market is willing to bear a higher cost of electricity, we'll continue to produce it, right? We are producing there's no mandate that we're building these projects in the state of Indiana, right? It's what the market will bear. And so, it's hard to answer that question in a total vacuum. The reality is they're there today. And to the extent that we are building these projects, those benefits are being returned in the form of a reduced delivered cost of electricity.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we'll follow up. So basically the ratepayer then benefits. If that's what I just heard, the ratepayer is
Yes,
going
sir.
to benefit until the federal subsidy goes away, and then we're going to pay more.
So the clarification I would have for that, Representative Pressel, is when we are pricing out a project, we are to say an Indiana utility to provide that generation. It's a 20-year contract or more. These tax credits are available for 10 years, at least as currently contemplated under federal tax code. However, we are levelizing that over the course of the life of the project, right? Which is part of what makes renewable energy appealing from a ratepayer standpoint is the price of electricity on year 1 and it at year 20, right? That's not the case for other types of generation where supply can be variable. What the upfront cost is. And so if we know what the impact of those tax credits are, even if it's for 10 years, that gets levelized over the life of the tenure of that contract.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Representative Pierce.
Yeah, following up on that cost issue. So you can take and look at what's called levelized cost of energy, right? Which backs out subsidies and gets am I correct in that? A levelized cost backs out subsidies and gets you to an apples to apples comparison. Well, I just did a quick Google search, and if you look up levelized cost of energy, solar is $36. This is per megawatt hour. $36 solar, wind is $40, natural gas is $67, and nuclear is $82. Not sure why coal's not listed in here, but any rate, the idea that renewables only exist because there are subsidies is not really accurate.
No, I would agree with you, Representative Pierce. There's so much mythology out there, and I've learned now that 276 people should set energy policy for the state, so we should get rid of the 5 pillars, and I've learned so much today. I also learned that I don't represent the people of my district. I was fascinated to hear that part. But anyway, thank you for your testimony. Maureen Ferguson, you're nodding off back there, Ms. Ferguson. I want to.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for listening to this discussion. Maureen Ferguson, representing the American Petroleum Institute. We have over 600 members that produce all kinds of energy. We're energy companies and interested in providing energy, whatever the market needs and what makes the most sense. Just to very quickly make a few additional points, so much has already been said today, but science dictates the best place for these projects. We can't decide where the natural gas is, where the reserves are, where oil is, the best place for wind. I mean, science dictates primarily the best locations for these and where the infrastructure there should follow. Pipelines crisscross this state thousands of miles and have for a really long time, delivering reliable, safe, consistent energy for homes, businesses, schools, agricultural products, all of us. But if we had to wait for township to township, county to county to approve those crisscrossing and where those would be developed, it would never get done. There's so much, I think sometimes there's a lot of fear, and the fear spreads quicker than facts. Fear is easier to pass and easier to share. Not always, clearly, but I think there's a lot of that gets driven into these discussions. Therefore, if this bill, but we support this bill. I haven't really gone through the whole amendment yet. We're still working on that. But the idea that there would be a consistent, predictable, with regulatory certainty process for these projects would do so much to help us in energy planning and developing the energy. People, my great-grandfather, or my grandfather, and a lot of people's great-grandfathers that are sitting here today, if you ask them, they would remember if they lived in rural areas when there was no energy. Not that long ago, no energy. I don't know if your great-grandfather remembers that, or grandfather even, no energy, and what that meant for a standard of living there. And when they were bringing and stringing those wires, the electricity, this isn't my area, but when they were stringing those wires to bring electricity to those houses, what that meant for their standard of living. We take for granted what energy does for us because we have so much of it. We're blessed in this country, and we need to make sure we're not taking it for granted. Energy demands are continuing to go up regardless of data centers. They add to it. But we all are more and more electrified all the time. Energy demand is going up. So for those reasons, support this bill. If there are any questions.
Questions for Ms. Ferguson?
No.
Seeing none, thank
Okay,
you for
thank
being
you.
here. Thank you for your patience. I've got two more and I'm done. I tried to listen to all of the opposed first so they could get on the record. Trina Raudebusch. Trina's behind the pillar.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. Good afternoon, Chairman Soliday, representatives. My name is Trina Raudebusch. I proudly live in District 96. Today I'm speaking on behalf of EDP Renewables. We're a developer, owner, and operator of wind, solar, and storage projects that help meet America's and Indiana's growing demand for affordable energy. We do have questions about elements of the amendment that seem to run counter to the intention of the bill, notably to provide economic development opportunities and much needed power. I look forward to exploring those further as this bill moves ahead. Over the past decade, EDPR has brought nearly 2 gigawatts of clean power online in Indiana, with an impactful pipeline still in development. EDPR has paid over $35 million in property taxes to Indiana counties, with more than $700 million forecast over the life of our projects. We have committed nearly $110 million in economic development payments thus far, and have spent over $100 million with vendors located near our projects. Our landowners have earned roughly $90 million in lease payments to date, and will continue to earn consistent, predictable revenue from their land over the project's life. We heard in the recent Senate Utilities Committee meeting that renewable energy projects should, quote, go where they're wanted. I'm pleased to tell you that we do just that. EDPR locates projects, one, where there is availability for additional power on the grid. Two, where there are landowners who choose to lease portions of their property to host a project. And three, where there are off-takers, companies and utilities seeking to purchase lower cost, renewable, American-made power. We have found that in Indiana. The proposed amendments appear to prevent developers from finding sites that meet these criteria. We also understand that Hoosiers are concerned about a decrease in farmland and the potential impacts on food production. The 2024 Inventory of Lost Farmland report, prepared by the Indiana State Department of Agriculture, recognized that of the roughly 18 million acres of land denoted as agricultural use in 2010, 370,000 acres, or roughly 1.89%, was removed primarily for residential development. Interestingly, during the same time, the report noted the crop yield increased, nearly doubling the number of bushels of corn produced, and soybean yield increased by more than 50%. Renewable energy storage and transmission projects were not considered as a contributor of farmland lost in that report. In fact, many of the landowners see these projects as preservation tools, a placeholder for future farming operations and continued family ownership. A similar and valid concern from project neighbors is the preservation of property values. A 2023 study from the Lawrence Berkeley National Labs explored the impact of commercial wind turbines. They noted a decrease in property value when a project was rumored, but saw a recovery as the project moved through construction and observed an increase in property value once the project was operational. One can speculate that stigma rooted in fear and misinformation drove the decrease. I would argue that the influx of revenue to our communities, especially to our schools, helped account for the increase in property value. Communities that deter development through moratoriums, restrictive ordinances, and project denials may still experience the hit from the stigma without the increase that comes with an operational project. Like every organization looking to do business in Indiana, from mom and pops to advanced manufacturers, we seek a more predictable, stable business environment in which to make significant long-term investment decisions. We stand in support of House Bill 1628's intentions and to bring needed resources to Hoosiers, and we look forward to being part of Indiana's continued prosperity. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience and much appreciate testimony.
I appreciate this. Here are a copy of the reports that I wrote.
Wonderful. Thank you. I was going to ask you, Scott Fritz. Welcome, Scott.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee.
Good evening, the way things
Oh, yeah, the way we're going. Representative Culp, my representative. Thank you for allowing and encouraging public comment. It's nice to see that. I'm Scott Fritz, Winnemac, Indiana, a farmer and a landowner. 2024 was my 50th crop, of which farming was my livelihood. I also might add that I'm a 5th generation farmer. 6th generation is back home working today. And the 7th 5 grandsons, one of them may be a farmer. When I am asked what stands out the most in these 50 years, my answer is change. Change in the amount of technical and mechanical innovation and the managerial skills needed to manage these changes. Today, the latest tech information systems have enabled me on our farm to more than triple the acres planted and quadruple in scale. Yield monitors record statistics every second and display that on yield maps. Those maps are then overlaid with soil fertility maps. The incorporation of GPS provides precise applications of fertilizers and seed and offers automatic steering to the tractors and harvesters. This spring, new technology will count how many drops of water per leaf that our sprayer will apply in real time. Think about that, drops of water per leaf. Robots aren't far behind. All this history illustrates that today's modern farmers don't have titles behind their names, but they are some of the most skilled and innovative executives among us. So how has my county performed in keeping up with change? In my experience, my county has struggled, often mightily, over most every innovation that has come along, from school reorganizations, consolidations, to countywide zoning, and now anything to do with electric power generations and the changes it may bring. My county has a $26 million expense budget, which must be supported by a shrinking population, now less than 13,000 people. That also includes a decline in working age people. We have an average of less than 29 people per square mile, and a current unemployment rate of 2.1%. We do not have an available workforce to attract traditional business and industry, nor sufficient population to support a county government and its essential services. The clean energy projects, which require a minimal workforce once constructed, but provide much needed tax income, and our ideal solution for our county's revenue needs, taking guidance from our neighboring farmers and landowners who have committed a small percentage of our county's acres to renewable energy projects, is why I support House Bill 1628. Today and last week, I have heard testimony from county commissioners and others regarding local control. There are many local jurisdiction-specific issues that counties have control over. Why are they fighting this issue? People choose to live where they feel secure, have job opportunities, good schools, quality health care, and enjoyable amenities. I encourage county officials to focus on those areas. State elected officials have the same passion for statewide issues, with the added responsibility of looking at the whole state and working with the governor to identify trends and opportunities that impact all Hoosiers. That is what House Bill 1628 is all about. And lastly, if I have one request, it would include language into the bill that assures tax revenue generated through these state-approved projects would remain in the counties. Thank you.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here. I have one more witness, Jonathan Monroe. Thank you for your patience, Jonathan.
Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience, Chairman, and thank you, members of the committee. My name is Dr. Jonathan Monroe. I own a small family farm in Perry County. I live on the northeast side of Indianapolis, and I practice as an anesthesiologist in Delaware County. I think we're all here today because we think there's a contention that individual interest in county level politics is being put above community benefit. And I want to emphasize one aspect of community benefit that I haven't heard mentioned today, and that is deaths from air pollution. Okay, so it's estimated there's 100,000 excess deaths from air pollution in the USA every year. Okay, so in your counties and your districts, more people are dying from air pollution than motor vehicle accidents and gun deaths combined. Yet we don't hear a lot of discussion about this. Okay, now, burning fossil fuels accounts for more than half of that pollution, and electricity generation is a major contributor to that. So what we're getting to is, if you can produce electricity without burning fossil fuels, you'll cause less deaths. And I'm not just talking about deaths from lung disease, okay? In fact, there's just as many deaths caused from heart attacks and heart disease as there is from lung disease, and just as many deaths from strokes as there are from lung disease. So, I mean, these are real numbers here, okay? Now, Chairman, you have talked about an energy transition. I feel that we're in a paradigm shift similar to when we decided that wastewater shouldn't be combined with drinking water. And some areas of the country went to huge expense to separate wastewater from drinking water. Now, to us, it would seem like a no-brainer. It's obvious to do it. We would be outraged if there was cross-contamination and someone died because they drank something contaminated by wastewater. We are coming around to realize that we shouldn't burn into the very air that we breathe, okay? And we have the data to back that up. Now, humans have always burnt things for energy because we haven't had a choice. But now we do have a choice, so we should come back to re-examine the way that we protect the air that we breathe. And in this case, you know, while protecting our water costs money, we know it's actually cheaper to generate electricity through means that are non-pollutant. So I just sort of stand back, and you know, you'd be better served by an epidemiologist who truly understands the figures. But I can read the literature, and I take care of patients in my operating room who suffer from these diseases. And so I want to speak up on their behalf. And I think if we consider unnecessary deaths and premature deaths from air pollution, that only adds weight to the community benefit that we will get from renewable energy. And so I support broadly House Bill 1628. I did prefer it before the amendments restricting what land could be used, but I'm broadly in support of House Bill 1628.
Thank you, sir. Questions for the witness? You testified last week. Who are you? Who are you? Yeah, you testified.
I never testified.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. And thanks, Mr. Pressel, for seeing me wave at you over there. I'm the one that printed all the binders in front of you. Thank you, committee members. And without reading the amendment for myself, I'm going to move forward with my speech as I wrote it. I do appreciate the protections of farmland, but it does not protect property values, health, safety, and wells. My name is Denise Spooner. I provided those binders. I'm a licensed real estate broker of 20 years in Indiana and a farmer's daughter. I served a year on Madison County's Board of Zoning Appeals, 3.5 years on planning, and I served on all the solar subcommittee meetings. I believe the majority of Hoosiers were thrilled to hear that Trump was going to kill the Green New Deal and that our state is exploring nuclear and natural gas. We want reliable, affordable, 24/7 dispatchable energy. But House Bill 628 lumps all these power sources together. I oppose because renewables is a part of this bill, and I believe home rule should be upheld in Indiana. Indiana has done its share for renewables. The first few pages of the binder covers that, and we do rank 20th in the U.S. Regarding solar and property values, perhaps you aren't aware that homeowners are being engulfed inside massive industrial solar plants. It surrounds them on all three sides and across the road. No matter what window you look from or door they exit, their view is 6-foot chain link fence, a barbed wire, and 15 to 20-foot solar panels. Some of them have to drive miles before they can exit this solar plant. In Madison County, an appraiser told a homeowner that was surrounded, you might as well bulldoze your house and sell the land to the developer because it would be worth nothing. No one will buy it. I have testified as an expert in several counties and hearings, and my name, not any name from the solar industry, of those appraisers, appears in the Indiana Court of Appeals decision in Mammoth Solar versus Ehrlich that gave the citizens standing as having proved their property values would be injured. The courts have already validated injury, and right now the evidence has shown up to 30% decline, and this is based on much smaller megawatt of solar plants and where homes are only impacted on one side. This is the truth. No damage study has been performed on these homes that are engulfed and completely surrounded, but we're working on it. I've provided you a few documents from Kentucky's leading industry expert. Her name is Mary McClinton Clay. She has nearly 40 years experience in damage studies, eminent domain cases, has survived a Darbert challenge and never lost a single court case in her entire career. The state of Ohio Power Siting Board has taken her testimony, and I implore you to look at her impressive resume in the binder. When she appears in person over solar, the projects are denied. Last week, GeneX was here and implied that it could not be proven that solar injures property values. I had this expert specifically write to all of you an explanation that it can, and it has been a part of the real estate industry for decades. This is nothing new. There's been lots of litigation over eminent domain and other situations. Her letter is in the binder. Homeowners are protected under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, and attorneys have advised and cautioned us about unfair taking lawsuits. If you take away local control over wind and solar, this could follow like Ohio, where they ended up passing Senate Bill 52 and gave local control back because of the amount of lawsuits and overwhelming opposition that came at the state. And 75 counties are suing in the state of Michigan because of home rule being taken away over wind and solar. There has to be reasonableness in ordinances, and that is our first guide when explained in the Indiana Citizens Planner Guide, specifically to follow our comprehensive plans, protect health, welfare, safety, and property values in both directions. And you guys, if you would just read a waiver of liability and an indemnification clause in a solar lease, this would explain a lot. I've included one lease in there. I have many of them. For sake of printing, I just included one, but just listen to this. Owner acknowledges that certain aspects inherent to the operation of a solar energy facility may result in nuisance, such as visual impacts, increased noise levels, glare, other possible effects of electrical generation, EMF, and transmission, including without limitation, potential interference with radio, television, telephone, mobile phone, or other electronic devices. That could be a pacemaker. Owner understands and has been informed by the grantee that these project facilities on the property may result in a nuisance and hereby accepts such a nuisance, and owner waives its right to object to such a nuisance, provided that the grantee complies with its obligations in the agreement. How many times did a developer just call their own project a nuisance? And if you aren't aware, EPA scientist Mark Striner has released 39 records proving that Gen X PFAS chemicals are on solar panels. There's many utility judges across the U.S. that have testified about this and wanted it out of the solar panels. Regarding farm ground, thanks Representative Culp for your study, but it didn't take into consideration solar. There's new studies that are in your binders, how we cannot farm again. I know I'm out of time, but I'm asking that you please look at the information that I have provided you. Land sprawl, land use, energy sprawl is the greatest land use change right now in the United States. There's a study in your binder on it. If you have a 100 megawatt, takes 1,500 acres. Same thing for 10,000 acres for wind. But what can we do with gas and nuclear? It's a much smaller footprint on that. Please ask me questions.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you. Okay, Ms. Rockman, if you want to testify wherever you went.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to members of the committee. My name is Denise Abdul-Rahman. I represent the Indiana State Conference of the NAACP through the leadership of Sadie Harper Scott. We rise to oppose House Bill 1628, basically because of we want communities to have their own self-determination. We're opposed to any electric generation being able to be placed within communities, and we're opposed to the fact that there's no permit requirements, and also concerns about the environment and health concerns and the role that would play as far as communities being able to express their voice. And we again lift up, like we have with many of the other legislation, the consideration of a community benefit agreement should the legislation move, allowing for some kind of carve out, whatever the energy source is that benefits the community, some kind of economic benefits to the community, and things that can help them with their environment, health, and safety concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Yeah, I have people on the list here. Sam Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I apologize for the confusion. My colleague Ashton Eller had signed up to testify during last week's meeting. But in any event, my name is Sam Sharon. I'm here on behalf of the Indiana Manufacturers Association. I had several specific comments to make about the portions of the bill that we support, but in the interest of time, I think I will just say that we're here to support. I would like to thank Representative Snow for authoring this bill and thank the chair and the committee for hearing it today. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions? Thank you. And that's the last person I have signed up. So I see someone over here would like to testify. So you do need to make sure that LSA knows who you are and where you're from. Him, her.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Kniebel, and I am a new commissioner in Pulaski County. I was here last week. I did register last week, so I've got about 9 hours logged on the road so far. But I kept hearing Mr. Westco, Representative Westco, last week talk about why moratoriums. My speech has changed several times, but I want to give you just an idea of what Pulaski County has experienced and why we are the poster child for moratoriums in the state of Indiana. In 2020, our first solar developers came in requesting about 4,200 acres. That was all. 4,200 acres was going to be it. Within months, the number of acres had doubled. At first, we were told we only need ground under the transmission lines. Then that moved to 1 mile, then 2, now 5. Then 5. Now they're permitted anywhere in Pulaski County. Residents expressed concerns, but were ignored by the local officials. there's been a solar developer here who mentioned that they get well informed and they get to know these communities very well. Unfortunately, prior to last night, Pulaski County was at, 29,000 acres under solar development, nearly 14.3% of all of our tillable ground, which is a lot of acres. Last night, for the first time as a commissioner in Pulaski County, I heard that the developer was asking for an ERA resolution on an additional 8,000 acres in Pulaski County. This was the first I had heard this at a county council meeting. You ask why we need moratoriums. At this time, with the additional 8,000 acres, Pulaski County is looking at nearly 20% of all tillable ground. I appreciate hearing Representative Soliday 2%. That's music to my ears. In addition to this, leases with these landowners who had signed many have not been recorded in our recorder's office. Of the 8,000 acres that were mentioned last night, only 2,800 had actually been recorded in our recorder's office. I've met with our recorder. I've met with our building inspector. I've met with our assessor. Pulaski County at this time is only playing chase with the developers who have come into Pulaski County. I am asking in Pulaski County for a moratorium at this time. It has been nearly 5 years, and it's become the wild, wild west. So again, you ask why moratoriums. I just don't want to say anything I don't need to. My concern as a commissioner, when these projects in Pulaski County become obsolete, and we are at nearly 20% of all of our tillable ground, we know more reliable, more efficient energy is coming down the pike. At this point, we've given all of this ground to solar developers. When they pull out, what happens to that ground and what used to be the agricultural driver, economic driver in Pulaski County? And how do we replace that at that point? I think we're setting ourselves up for complete disaster by not having a plan. And if at this point, we can't come up with a plan because all we are doing is playing whack-a-mole, trying to get ahead and trying to give our resources, our building inspector, all of these people in our community, the means to get ahead. It's become a financial drain. So I'm asking you for that reason. That is why we need these moratoriums. And other counties have looked at Pulaski and said, we don't want to be you. So I would appreciate, again, I appreciate the changes. I'm still opposed to House Bill 1628, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Questions?
Real quick, how many acres are currently already developed, and then how many are in development?
We have none in development at this point. The first solar developer is just putting the lay down yards down now.
So you don't even have any completed yet?
We do not. We do not. There were petitioners in the very beginning when this moved through. There were petitioners that signed, and it's been in legal battle for a long time. Now, you heard someone just speak prior to me, maybe one or two before me, that said this did go to the State Court of Appeals. The petitioners were found to have standing. They acknowledged that what was put down for those petitioners, they did believe, yes, you have standing, you are going to suffer damages by all of this solar development around you. So they did agree to that. 3 appellate court judges ruled it on behalf of the petitioners. So since that time, this has been back and forth in different litigation. But again, it's the steamrolling of some of these developers that the counties, our small rural counties, don't have a chance against some of this.
Thank you. You've answered my question.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to say they don't have a chance, right now, they can say no. So saying they don't have a chance is not accurate. They can say no. And the main concern among a number of the committee members on moratoria is they never end. And it's time to make a decision, yes or no, because you're leaving people with huge investments, farmers, people with property rights, even though I just learned today they have no constitutional rights. So I can't buy that just endless moratoriums for years. I mean,
Yeah,
you've got
me
5
neither.
years here who people want to move on.
Yeah, we have our moratorium, we've had none. So, and I am not in favor of open-ended moratoriums at all. But time for the community, time for the county to take a breath. We can't even catch a breath. Any other questions?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. So maybe 2 parts, possibly a third. So you mentioned in your testimony, and totally caught me off guard, I'm not sure what you meant. You said playing chase. You're playing chase. What does that mean?
Our building inspector can't even keep up with the number of parcels that are coming in. As a commissioner, I have requested multiple times, may I see the application or the permits? May I see the parcels that are attached to the permits? I don't get any response. And I'm not sure the reason. I feel like part of it is our building inspector can't keep up. She can't keep up with the regular tasks in the county. So she's underwater, and the assessor can't accurately assess the ground because she can't get the information from the building inspector. So you can't shovel snow while it's still snowing. And Pulaski County has been shoveling snow for 5 years.
Love the analogies. We haven't had much snow in LaPorte County.
Yeah.
So yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
You also mentioned, and I guess I don't know what I don't know, leases not being recorded at the recorder's office. Is that a requirement to
It is. They
record
are,
a lease?
Yes, sir. They are to record the leases within 45 days of signing them.
So
Some are going 2 years.
Really? Okay. And that's in your ordinance?
Yes. Yes, it is in our county. Yeah.
Looks like we have
it's
a
required in
differing
the county.
opinion over here. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time. That is all of the people
Thank you.
that I have on the list wishing to testify. Is there anyone else? So session is beginning. What I'm going to do is recess the meeting. We may or may not reconvene. But as I said when we started all this, there's some tough decisions, and I can hear in some of your minds. I mean, I've heard some things I have never heard in my whole life before. Interpretations of the Constitution, so forth and so on. Never heard them before. Found out I don't represent the people who elected me. So we need to have some discussion as a committee. We will. I don't know how we let 296 commissioners from all over the state set energy policy for a state where demand is exceeding supply. And I can tell you this, because I've been around a while. I've got a bill upstairs, which I'm holding. I just told the speaker we're going to hold it. It puts incentives in for nuclear reactors. We have a chance to bring small modular reactor manufacturing to Indiana. I have another bill that I'm going to hold. It is the chance to have a quantum corridor that connects the Defense Department contractors in Fort Wayne with Notre Dame, with Purdue, with Crane. When I was at the National Academy, an equation for a wing design for Mach 10 would run for a week. Quantum computing, it will run for less than an hour. That has to do with medical research, but that quantum pipeline requires a building every 50 miles. And right now, from the testimony I've heard, you want that decision for medical research to rest with 3 commissioners in a county with 8,000. So very, very, very difficult decision. Said when we began, what are the limits of local control when they affect folks outside of that local geographic area? So we've heard pretty strong testimony. So again, the committee needs to discuss it before we move the bill forward, because there's no point in voting it if it's going nowhere. So again, state needs to decide who it wants to be and whether we should be trying to attract jobs, not money, jobs. because they're going away. Where I grew up, there were 36,000 steel mill jobs. There are now 8. If we don't bring in the new businesses, where are our kids and grandkids going to work? So it's a tough decision. We will wrestle with it before we have any vote, but thank you all for coming. Thank you for your patience.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. God, that dude's an asshole. I just don't, there's no other way to say it. I have absolutely no respect for that man. He acts like this is his first day on earth, first day as a politician. He's never heard people having difference of opinions on how they read the text of the Constitution, how they interpret law. I assume he's an attorney by the way that he spoke early on, and by the way that he was so concerned. I love that he asked the one lady if she was a constitutional attorney, and she was like, "No, but I've got the book." I always love that. I'm glad they didn't vote. We know which way he's going, and I think it's odd that he, man, what an asshole. I happen to know know some people in his office, and know his legislative assistant. And I called and said, "Hey, I need him to call me when he gets a moment." And I am going to unload on that guy. And I can tell you that I'm going to do everything I possibly can to make sure that I'm in a position where I can record that phone call, and I will happily play it for you all if and when that happens. So again, that was the Utilities, Energy, and Telecommunications Committee. They discussed several bills, one being the very controversial House Bill 1628. It sounds like they may reconvene later today. Honestly, I doubt that they will, so we'll just see what happens. I do want to, again, for the record, state that there was a very big committee meeting this morning that met at 8:30, and it was the it's on the tip of my tongue, the Tax and Fiscal Committee of the Senate, of the state Senate. And they completely gutted and butchered Senate Bill 1, which is the Braun property tax plan. As I told you all they would do, told everybody that it would happen, told everybody that it would not pass as Braun was putting it forward. And I have a lot of beliefs and a lot of thoughts and opinions on this. I do want to have a chance to talk about it with you all. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to be tonight. I want to let you guys know what's happening tonight at 6 p.m. There will be a Madison County Council meeting. We will be live streaming that Madison County Council meeting tonight at 6 p.m. And then after that meeting, there will be our regular 9 p.m. show episode. It should be episode 389. Catherine will be on the show with me, and we will discuss the meeting tonight. A lot of stuff going on there. A very important Madison County Council meeting tonight, so we will be watching that. Tomorrow at 10:30, the Courts and Criminal Code Committee will meet Wednesday, February 12th at 10:30, and they will discuss House Bill 1186. We will be live streaming that. That's already up. You can go there and hit notify me if you're interested in that. And then tomorrow evening, Wednesday evening, episode 390, we will discuss that committee. We will discuss this committee, and we will discuss the Senate Bill 1 and the tax and fiscal body committee of the Senate. So we'll discuss all of that tomorrow. Tonight will be Madison County night, and at 6 p.m. there will be a Madison County meeting. So tune in back here for all of that, and we'll be with you. Hey, hit the like on your way out, but more importantly, today is going to be a big day for posts on social media. And if you want to kind of get an understanding of what's going to be happening tonight and what's going to be talked about tomorrow, you're going to want to follow me on X. That's x.com/Bilbrey Live. And you're also going to want to follow me at facebook.com/Bilbrey318. That's Christopher H. Bilbrey on Facebook. So follow me all there. Do all of that stuff. Hit the like on your way out, and we will see you guys tonight at 6 p.m. and then again at 9 p.m. Eastern. You guys take care. God bless each and every one of you, and we will see you then. Goodbye.